Are we alive? We're live!
Oh, there we go.
We're live.
Hello, Carly here. I'm
Go on.
Great start. We're live.
We're
Hello.
live.
God, we're editing this later.
We'll fix it in post. Go on.
Hello, Carly here. I'm joined by Lex and Satsu, and Dragon Age Inquisition is coming out in 2 days, at least for us in America. And we have a very special podcast in which we will be talking all about the Dragon Age series, from the Origins, Awakening, Dragon Age 2, and more importantly, Dragon Age Inquisition. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Whoa.
It's very exciting. So let's start by talking about how we got into the Dragon Age series. Lex?
Well, Carly knows this.
Yeah.
But she was trying to talk me into playing Dragon Age for years and years, and I would just say, shut up, Carly, or ignore her, or... and last Christmas, I offered to buy her Mass Effect 3 for the PS3 because she played that game on Xbox, and I wanted to play multiplayer with someone I knew. And she thought it was really sweet, so she went and bought it by herself. So in return, I bought the Origins Ultimate Edition, which was the same price, and I played through it. That's how I got into the series.
I was very persistent with you. I was not gonna let that go until you actually try those video games.
She was very, very persistent, and it paid off because I love the series now, so it's awesome.
And now you're desperate to get your hands on Inquisition.
I cannot wait. Unfortunately, I live in the UK, so I have to wait until Friday. I'm hoping it'll come in the early, 21st. 21st of November it releases here.
Tomorrow for me is gonna be the longest fucking day imaginable.
Well, you've already played the demo, which we'll get to later, like the EA Early Access, but yeah.
Yeah, but that makes it worse because once you have that piece of it, you just want more. You're more desperate for more.
Well, it's better than just sitting around watching trailers. But anyway, let's move on to you.
You know, there's more to you, Tatsu.
Okay, alright. Okay, so I picked up Origins a little while after release, so in about 2009-ish. I remember playing as the Daily Shelf Origin, and I gave up at some point during Orzammar, during the Provings. Even though back then my previous experience was like Star Wars, KOTOR, and Neverwinter Nights, I didn't really find myself enjoying Origins a whole lot, and not as much as Mass Effect.
For the record, KOTOR is Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah. And Mass Effect had a much bigger effect on my experience of RPGs that time. But a few months ago, in preparation for Inquisition, because I was actually following the news and I actually got kind of excited, actually. So I played a full playthrough a few months ago, dusted off the old discs and reinstalled everything, including the Awakening expansion, which I didn't actually even take out the plastic wrap. I fiddled around with the toolset, modded a few things to make it a little bit more to my taste, and I actually found myself enjoying Origins a lot more the second time round, or at least enough to finish the game. Yeah, and make a full import into Dragon Age 2, which is another story entirely. Yep.
I'll show you for another time.
Yeah.
Okay, so my experience with Dragon Age started in 2009. I was late to the 7th generation of consoles because they were fucking extremely expensive when they came out.
Yep.
Extremely expensive. My dad had a PS3, the original one, but didn't use it for anything. So
it was like $600, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he just bought it to just have it in the living room, taking dust, because that's all it did. If me and my siblings weren't there, and when we were there, we only had 2 games to play: Resistance and a motocross game that I can't even remember the name. That was basically it. But I finally got, when the PS3 Slim came out, which was massively cheaper, then I got one for Christmas in 2009. I didn't really know what games to play. Since I didn't have a console for the longest time, I was still on my PS2. I wasn't paying attention to the games that were coming out for that generation because I wasn't going to play them. So I asked my little brother, and he said, there's this really good game called Dragon Age Origins that just came out, Assassin's Creed 2. So I'm more an RPG person, so I said, okay, I'm gonna ask for Dragon Age Origins for Christmas. My intention was probably never really gonna play it. I just gonna drop it off in my little brother would play it all the time. Wasn't really interested. At that point, BioWare for me was Knights of the Old Republic, which is a game that I really wanted to play but never got a chance to because it was only on the Xbox and PC. I didn't have an Xbox to play it on, and my PC probably couldn't run it. And the only thing I knew BioWare from was Mass Effect 1, which the whole controversy that came on Fox News. So that was basically my entire knowledge of BioWare.
BioWare selling sex, I believe.
Yes. People that
what controversies we live in.
People that aren't actually gamers will probably think, oh, this is just a company that produces porn, because they're always in the news for sex, and it's not really all that explicit. There are video games that have more, that show a lot more than BioWare, but yet BioWare always seems to be the one in the news for it. Once I actually, there was this one day I was really bored, put the game on, and it just instantly clicked completely with me. To that point, I wasn't used to playing more mature kind of video games, like RPGs for Kingdom Hearts for me, Final Fantasy, which are great video games, but they're not. They don't have the mature content that Dragon Age and other BioWare games have. So it just came at the perfect time. For me, the moment that I really got hooked is in the Human Noble, Oregon. Once our house was attacked, and you go with your mother to your sister-in-law's room, and you find her killed, and her and your nephew, a little kid. It's like, what? This is completely different from what I used to playing, because I never seen that. I never seen that in a video game, much less that early in a video game.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized. That's when I realized this is something completely different. And that's how it started for me, and I never looked back. It's one of my favorite series all the time. Origins is a game that I never get tired of playing. I still love playing it to this day, five years later. So yeah. Yeah,
that's fair. Lex, do you want to talk about what got you really into it, and did you go over that?
I guess it was the story and the characters in the first game. Pretty much the characters all grew on me, aside from Wynn, who I liked from the very beginning, because she's Wynn, ha ha ha.
I'll fight you over that.
I always liked Wynn. I liked Wynn from start to finish. I just liked speaking to her in the camp. I grew to love Morrigan. Morrigan was always kind of funny from early on, but I think the more you go through the story, you see how naive she is. A lot of the tropes are subverted throughout the game as well, which is something I really enjoy.
They'll present something and then just subvert it afterwards.
Yeah, they do that a lot, which is just so much fun, and it's a good way to tell a story as well. The narrative is excellent in that game. I didn't like the gameplay in Origins, and I attribute that to the fact that I played the game on console from start to finish. So
fair enough.
I wasn't a massive fan at all. I found it really slow and sluggy, and not just the combat though. It was the loading and the freezing every time I had to load. And I just know that if I'd played the game on PC first, I would have preferred the tactical aspect. And
now I think most of us have the PC version, I believe. So
I got my PC. I got it recently. It was the Ultimate Edition. It was extremely cheap on Amazon. I said, well, I gotta give it a try on PC, because that's where you really get to enjoy the gameplay and all that stuff on PC. And it's miles better.
It's dirt cheap now, and it was free on Origin a while back. I'm not sure if it's still free, but like you can pick it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it not free? Was that the Ultimate Edition that was free?
Yeah. No, it was just the base game.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah. And the problem with that is basically it takes a lot of space if you just if you get PC games and just downloading them. It's much better to just buy the actual copy.
Yeah.
Which is not something. There wasn't a free copy version on Origin. so I just bought it off of Amazon, which was also cheap,
Okay.
so it wasn't really an issue. But it's just, I just immediately when you start playing it and you get your first taste of the tactical aspect, you're like, ugh.
Yeah,
It's
like
a
the
little
top
tricky at
down.
first. It's a little tricky
Yeah,
at first getting used to it, but once you get used to it, when you play it again on console, it's like it's not the same.
yeah,
Well, that was really what kept me going was the characters.
yeah.
I didn't really touch any of the DLC though, or even
Hmm,
Awakening until
yeah.
I finished the game and I was kind of exhausted by the time I finished it, so
So you didn't
I had to
play
give it a
through
rest.
Awakening, or
Sorry?
did you play through Awakening, or
I did play through
you?
Awakening, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I did play through. I played everything now. I gave it a break for about 6 months and then came back to it to play
Yeah,
all the DLC.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I really agree with you on the character aspect. Like that's what really kept me going through both games, and that's by far the characters. And for me, like going through like all these Bioware games, like to me the characters have always been their strength in their writing. Um, I didn't like, I didn't really care much for Origin's cookie cutter story quests. It felt
Yeah.
really sort of vanilla and generic to me, or even the combat. And I agree, it was really slow and plodding, and I think it lacked a lot of pace. And even Dragon Age 2, and obviously, like which we'll get to in a minute, well, we had a whole list of issues, but I think the main thing that kept me going was basically the character development of the party. Watching these personalities like play off of each other and like basically interact more like people at the
Yes.
end of the day. Yeah, and they really brought that across in Dragon Age 2, which I think was one of the main things they improved on. But yeah, I'll save that for a later section, I think. So,
For me, basically every single BioWare game that I played always has a strong character, a group of characters. That's always something that you're gonna remember.
hmm,
And this game in particular, what you think those characters are gonna do, or how you think their personalities and all that stuff are, it's not exactly what ends up being. Like Lex says, there's a lot of versions with the characters. Like at
hmm,
first glance, if you look at Liliana, you wouldn't actually figure out her history. Morgan
yeah,
is at first glance seems a lot like Biconia from Baldur's Gate. I don't actually know how to pronounce her name, but it's in the end, once you get to know her a lot better, she's a lot different from that
yeah.
character.
And there's always these character like these aspects that you don't quite get at first glance, like you said, and then when you do get to know them more, they reveal more of their character, and then oftentimes they're not as simple as they seem. But I think, yeah, like
That's
I
one of
think
the
we can,
absolute strengths of the game, definitely, is how the characters develop.
yeah. So I guess we can like move on and talk about like what we really like about Origins, and I guess some of the things that we kind of don't like, because I think we've touched on it a bit, but there are a lot of things that it's a good game for me, but I don't think it's perfect.
No, definitely
And there were
not.
certainly a lot of things that could have been improved. So yeah, if you want to talk about that for a bit,
Wax.
Uh,
up to you.
round two. I've pretty
Round
much
two.
said, specifically though, the quest I really enjoyed was the Urn of Sacred Ashes. I really liked the first kind of wow moment in the game for me, was when you emerge after a really long cave mountain dungeon and the High Dragon swoops down after you sound the horn. I was like, oh shit, what am I going to
Yeah.
do? That was like one
Some
of my
great,
favorite.
yeah, there's some great little moments in there.
Uh,
Mm.
that's like a kind of specific moment in the game that I remember really enjoying. Plus, obviously, you decide to defile the urn, and who are you if you decide to do that, first of all? But if you decide to defile the urn and you have the companion reactions, which are pretty fantastic, Liliana and Wynn turn on you if you do that.
Yeah,
which is just awesome. And I like the fact that there are decisions that you can make as the player that will get a kind of massive reaction from characters, and they can die, or they can agree or disagree with your decisions, but it's not just a meter, it literally has an impact on the story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there's a lot of
awesome.
So a lot of good choices and consequences in the whole system. I guess we should probably mention at this point there's going to be some Origin spoilers and some Dragon Age 2 spoilers.
And Awakening spoilers.
And Awakening spoilers. No Inquisition spoilers, probably because only some of us have played through the game. But we'll keep Inquisition as spoiler-free as possible.
Yeah.
We probably should have said that first. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stop for a moment. The stream is not working properly. If you look at if you check the link to the YouTube channel, it keeps stopping to load.
Oh. You want to stop it and check it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's not just your computer though?
That's why I wrote to you guys in the chat to check the link yourself.
But maybe it's just a connection. I don't know. No, it comes out fine for me.
It's also fine for me.
Carly, it comes out fine for me.
Can you listen to the sound, see if it's working fine too?
Yeah, I've done that. It sounds fine. Like it's not stopping and starting at all.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it sounds fine to me. Yeah.
It must just be your connection. It'll be because you're hosting the call.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Probably as the host. Because I'm listening to it and I don't have any issues with it.
Although it is a bit of a mindfuck. Like listening to it and...
Yeah, it is seriously messing with my perception of this call because I'm hearing like a whole different conversation like half a minute in the past.
Okay, we get back.
It sounds fine.
Okay, we're gonna get back. The first thing we're gonna say is like there's gonna be spoilers for Origins, Awakening, and Dragon Age 2.
I don't think we need to be too strict about like editing stuff out as long as we keep it casual. So
yeah.
Don't worry.
Obviously, this part of it is gonna go out.
Yeah.
Like okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now we're gonna talk more about the story and decisions and characters in Dragon Age Origins. There's gonna be spoilers. There's gonna be spoilers for Awakening. There's gonna be spoilers for Dragon Age 2. There won't be spoilers for Inquisition. 1, because the game hasn't come out, and 2, because we actually haven't played it. I played the first 6 hours, but that's not exactly spoiler heavy. I've been checking the BioWare forums. I know quite a few spoilers, but I'm not gonna share them here.
We'll keep it as spoiler free as possible. Yep.
Yeah, Inquisition is spoiler free, just speculation and what we're looking forward to and other stuff. But anyways, Origins. Lex, what exactly the story with you and characters and gameplay?
What did I enjoy about the story?
Yeah.
What did I enjoy about the story? I liked... See, the thing is, I'm really weird with these things because I don't like high fantasy settings at all. I'm so non-traditional gamer that way. I don't like it. I don't like medieval stuff.
You mentioned that before, that you prefer more futuristic settings.
It's not that I prefer futuristic settings, I prefer more realistic settings. And if they're set in the future, if you're comparing it to, say, Mass Effect, which is set in the future, and it's sci-fi, and crazy things do happen, but you're kind of like, well, science, or well, space magic. So it's not really about suspension of disbelief as much as it is. I find a lot of it when it's set in the past, as so many games are set in a kind of medieval European setting. I find it quite tropey.
The setting didn't really appeal to me either.
I don't like medieval settings in general, but Dragon Age really flipped that on its head for me because there's so much about it that I enjoy, and one of my favourite things about the story is a total side story in Origins and a kind of side story in Dragon Age 2 as well, and it's Plymouth.
Yeah.
I want to know Flemeth is honestly what I'm most excited about, where that's going to go. Even if she only shows up for another 3 seconds in Inquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she'll have a
watch
significant
more.
role. They said they said like in a lot of interviews that they will address some of the stuff about Morrigan and Flemeth.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like another thing I really liked about the whole system was that there are a lot of choices and consequences, but they weren't necessarily as direct as Mass Effects, but they carry over into the world rather than just the personal stories of Shepard and the sort of little NPCs you see around.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
but like,
sorry.
go on.
I think with Flemma, the thing is, we don't really know basically anything about her, and that's what makes her even more appealing. Because she has played a part in so many of the events in the Dragon Age universe, yet we're still just speculating as to what she is, what she's planning, what she's done. Is she's a bad? Is she's evil? Is she's not good? That we can. That we know. She may be more
We
ambiguous.
don't really know that though, because I've been doing my Flemeth reading. I've been reading all the theories, and there's the Old God Baby theory, which I really like, because you don't know if she's good or not. I think it could quite easily. I don't know for sure, but I think she could end up being one of the main villains in Inquisition.
Yeah, well, there's no denying that she has an agenda. Obviously, like every time she gives you something or asks you a favor, like it's always to her benefit. But especially when you talk about Dragon Age 2, like her whole appearance is solely for her own personal benefit. Like even though she saves Hawke right at the beginning. But yeah, she definitely has her own agenda, and it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in the Inquisition.
The thing is, in one of the novels, you actually meet another one of her daughters, and it's very evident that what Morrigan was saying, what she's supposedly planning to do with Morrigan's body, Morrigan wasn't lying. It's true. You actually see that with another daughter.
Yeah.
So she's not. What her plans are maybe maybe end up being a good thing for Tidus, but that doesn't mean this is actually a good character. Yeah. And in a setting like Dragon Age, where it's not black and white, it's more. There's a lot of gray going around. Even the characters in Origins, like Logan, which is technically one of the villains of the game, can end up being as one of your party members. And you can't. He's a sympathetic character. You can't look at him. You can hate him, but he has some sympathetic qualities with him, and that's what I mean.
I think he's as we were talking about characters. We're talking about Loghain. I believe, for me, he's a straight up villain, but at the same time, he's relatable. He has redeeming qualities that make him human, but he's still for me, he's still a villain. But I don't I like the whole ability to actually recruit him. I think that was a really I think that was how the choices and consequences really reinforce the way the Dragon Age world is set up. It was very
whether or not to kill him, I think, is where it becomes a morally grey area, because it can be useful alive, and tactically that is really the best option. However, he is not. I don't think he fits into a kind of grey area character because he's evil and that's it. He is a cunt. He has reasons. He has his reasons for doing the things that he did, sure, but he's still a cunt.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see him in a more fantasy setting where it would be a straighter line between good and evil. I would probably see him as evil. But in Dragon Age, this more gray area, I don't see him as straight up evil. And it is the more practical decision to keep him alive.
It is. But at the same time, he is inherently, the actions he does, are inherently evil. I mean, he is a tyrant basically.
Yeah.
And within the political because a lot of it has to do with politics, and I think not all of it is obviously not inherently evil, but the things he does often like if we were to compare it to real life, we would say these are unethical things. These are to the detriment of the world.
The thing that upsets me most in any story is when something catastrophically bad happens and blame is misplaced onto the hero. That annoys me a lot, and the payoff when the truth comes out is part of what I really like about a story. So that's another thing I actually really enjoyed in Origins, is when you get closer to the end and everyone kind of realizes the truth about what happened at Ostagar. And
so a lot of the politicking was sort of, and that's what made it, I think that's what made it a little different as well. Like the whole like everything was leading into politics, and the way politics was shaping the world, rather than just player quest goes on X quest to defeat monster Y and save world Z. Also, Kali dropped out. We'll fix it in post.
Oh my goodness.
We'll fix it in post.
We shall. We appear to have lost Carly.
I think when we're editing this, we need to leave out the whole "we'll fix it in post" thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We'll fix it in post. Oh,
and if
no.
anyone is actually listening live on YouTube, we apologise.
Oh dear.
But I think we're just going to hang out and wait for Carly to come back.
Yeah.
Unless she's had a good old Puerto Rican power outage, as is wont to happen.
Are you the host?
These Google Hangout things don't really work like that.
Oh. Okay. So it's just a server thing.
I thought earlier when I said she was the host, I thought that she was the host.
But she's just like a moderator, I think.
Yeah, it must be hosted on Google, and then they obviously transmit it to YouTube. Yeah. But we're going to have to download the audio from this video as soon as the podcast is finished, as soon as the video finishes rendering, and then remove the video from the channel.
Yeah.
Or have Joe do it.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have this in the raw, but it's kind of like not conducive.
Well, if we're keeping it on the channel as it is,
I mean, it's not like we're just talking shit behind people's backs or anything.
I know.
Like, gee, this Game Perspective viewers, God, they're the worst. Nah. We love you all wherever you are.
Yes, wherever you are.
It's going on really well.
We found Carly.
We found Carly. Welcome back. We'll fix it in post.
I don't understand what's going on. The internet is working fine, yet Google is being a massive asshole to me.
Okay, we will need to remove that. Well, we will need to take that out in post. But anyway, yeah, we were still talking about the setting and stuff. Low gain. We were having an argument about low gain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you still want to have an argument about low gain?
What I was saying was, I don't even remember what I was saying. Okay, the setting of the Dragon Age series is such the grayness of the setting. If you have Logan in your party and you see him later throughout Awakening, he kind of changes a little bit. He's no longer the massive dick, like Lex said, that he is in Origins. So I think it's worth keeping him alive. It doesn't really matter when it comes to Alistair, because if you harden him, eventually he stops being angry about it, and you still can make him king. If you want to make him king with an aura, which is what I do, and I think it's what you guys do. I mean, he's gonna be angry for a bit, but in the end, it's the more practical decision. To me, it's the better decision to keep him alive.
So
I mean,
I was going to say, do you actually like Logan more than you like Alistair?
No.
Okay. Glad we got that cleared up.
It's not about who I like more, because I'm not a big fan of Alistair. I'm okay with his character. He's fine. He has his extremely annoying moments where he spends a lot of time whining. about everything, and his situation's not really that bad. But he's funny. He's self-aware that he's not the smartest guy in the world. So it's not about who I like more. It's about at that moment what is the better decision going into that,
Yeah.
and the more
And there,
practical decisions to keep Logan
yes,
alive.
and that's
To me,
I think that's yeah. I think that's really what makes it like the game really great is that there's basically like a really complex amount of choice and consequence. Like you want to go evil, you go evil. You want to make a practical choice, make a practical choice, and like a lot of it is natural. A lot of it feels natural in any case. And like the dialogue choices, there are lots available, and there's a big range of possible outcomes, and you know. Yeah, so like if you like, and especially the lands meet. When we're talking about lands meet right now, I guess that's really, like, really the culmination of the past 20 hours of the game, probably more. But and yeah, it's just like, and if you want to talk about Alistair, that's like the characters as well. Like the characters are basically just really, like their reactions are believable.
Yes, definitely. I agree.
And they're just, and so, like, I didn't like Alistair, going apeshit, but at the same time, we look at it, yeah, that's his character. I know, like, for a fact that Carly didn't exactly like his reaction, but at the same time, I was kind of like, well, I mean, yeah, go on.
Okay, I would understand his reaction a lot better, or understand where he was coming from. But throughout the whole game, you go through a lot of events that should have made Alistair more aware that it is the best decision. The Grey Wardens are not this order of shining knights that he sees them at. If it was earlier on in the game, before the Battle of Ostagar, maybe I could believe him making that like, oh, he shouldn't be in the Grey Wardens. That's not what the Grey Wardens are. Yes, there is. They will bring anyone.
Yeah.
Blood
But,
mages.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
at that point in the game, he should be more not as naive as he was before.
Yeah. I guess like they could have improved a little bit by having some like giving more dialogue options if it was hardened, and they do that to some degree. But I do agree that they could have handled that a little better. But at the same time, it's an irrational, like it is irrational, like his reaction to it, and because I think my warden was romancing Alistair at the time, so I basically chose to kill her again anyway. Hey, it's all right. I mean, and like I think it's not a bad romance, but at the same time, there's a lot of naivety in it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either because it works in the character's context.
And that appeals to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, and like because and this goes back into the character depth. He has a lot of wit, but at the same time, that being witty thing is an act to cover up for his failings as a person, I guess. I don't know. But he has flaws, and it's obvious that he's very naive, and I think that's actually reflected in the character scenes and the romances and whatnot. And it's the same for all of the characters, really.
Well, you have someone like, let's say, Morrigan, who, even though she talks a lot, she doesn't actually have any experience.
Exactly the same with Morrigan, like,
It's just with her, it's portrayed in a different manner, because the way she talks when you do something nice, that is actually a good thing for you, for the things you're doing, she doesn't actually understand. She just thinks, oh, he's doing, he or she, your warden is doing something nice, oh, that's immediately bad. When it isn't, she doesn't understand this, because she has spent her whole life with Flemet, and this is the actual first time that she's been outside of that, and throughout the game is her actually breaking out her mother's ideas that she's placed in her head. Like, towards the end of the game, you actually get to see more of what Morrigan actually believes in.
Yeah. So, because especially with Morrigan, it's basically like you encounter her, and her reactions to basically everything, she really only approves of short-term gain, and when you do things for the greater good, for the purpose of the quest to gain more alliances and stuff. Like, she doesn't, like you said, she doesn't recognize that. She doesn't recognize the ramifications of these things that you're doing, and so a lot of her character stems from, similar to Alistair. Her wit is a cover up for how naive she is, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. Yes.
But
it's
yeah,
not,
a lot of people.
It's not even that it's just solely a front, because of obviously she's never really ventured outside of the Cortani wilds with Flemeth.
And she just doesn't. She just doesn't know. Like,
Yeah,
she doesn't know better. Yeah, but sometimes I see that argument, like, oh, she's just really practical and stuff. Like, she's not really all that practical sometimes.
She's not.
No.
She like the only character that I thought, I felt personally was as selfish as Morrigan was probably Isabella. But
yeah,
that's an argument we'll have for the next game.
Another thing I would like to mention about Morrigan's character, though, is how drastically she has changed between the events of Origins and the events in Witch Hunt. She isn't a completely different character by any means, but you can tell in the way she speaks about what's going on and what's coming, that she's matured and that she has a focus and a goal, and she is now obviously aware of Flemeth, and she doesn't know what Flemeth is herself, but she knows enough to know that she has to disappear and prepare, basically. And, that kind of decisiveness is a little bit more fleshed out in her character in Witch Hunt than it is in the main game.
I remember when you got to, you were close to the end of Origins, when you got to do the Dark Ritual, you thought, okay, maybe this is evil. And I said, just wait till you play Witch Hunt. Because at that point, she's been almost 2 years away from Flemeth. If you took the Dark Ritual, now she's a mother. And one of the things that really struck me is that I think at that point she finally realized the level of the things she was doing. Like, she spent most of the game lying to the warden, disappearing after everything was done. I think she finally understands that she feels a lot of guilt over it. She understands the decision that she made weren't exactly the best decisions. She understands the gravity of what's going on.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify the timescale, though? Because I was under the impression that Awakening took place 4 years after Origins.
No.
4 years?
It's a few months after Origins, and Witch Hunt is a year or a year and a half, up to 2 years after Origins.
Time scales for BioWare games are really weird.
Maybe it's 4 months and I thought it was 4 years. I don't know.
Maybe. Because you have some confusion as to how long the main storyline of Origins is, because if you play as a dwarf noble and you get the noble hunter pregnant, Mindy, once you go back to Orsamar, she has a kid. So either the dwarves, the female dwarves, their pregnancy is a lot shorter than human and elven, or it's been about 9 months between your origin and the time you go back to Orsamar.
And that's the one thing I really think is a strength of BioWare's writing, is that they're really good at conveying the sense of change. Between Origins and Witch Hunt, there was a serious sense of change between the Morrigan you first encountered and the Morrigan who goes into the Alluvion.
I guess the time scale isn't all that important in Origins and all of its DLC, though, because Dragon Age 2 takes place over such a large time scale that it would wipe it out in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and that's also really one of the things I really don't like about Origin. It's like the time scale is weird.
Yeah.
And that's similar for a lot of BioWare games, except for I think Dragon Age 2, which had a really defined sort of timeline.
Mass Effect is kind of super specific though, because it has dates.
Is it?
Yeah, you've got a date for in the Codex especially, which is quite consistent. You've got a date.
Oh, you mean in the sequels moving onward? Because I had absolutely no idea how long the actual events of Mass Effect would take place over. I hear anything from a few weeks to like a month to half a year, and I don't exactly know how long the timescale was. But I guess that's player dependent. But there's no real sense to it to me.
It would be player dependent because you can do the first 3-4 planets in any order you like. So
yeah, I don't know, but
But the second and third games, even though they have a bit of order choice as well, less so in 3, they definitely have a more solid timescale.
Yeah, but I think, Origins suffered from the same issue, I think, because you were basically, like, especially some of the very, like, early long quests, they were really especially long. I mean, dealing with the Redcliffe stuff, even the Redcliffe stuff right at the beginning, and it's super long, because you go in, you deal with the undead, and, you go to Connor, he's possessed, and then, maybe we can go, get some mages to help him out. So you go to the circle, the tower in the middle of the lake, and you have to go around the lake just to get to the boat. And then when you get to the boat, you have to deal with the tower, and the tower's got its own issues. And by the time that's all happened, you go back to Redcliffe, and you've done this huge loop around the country basically, and that's a really sort of nebulous timescale.
Well, for one, Lake Callahan and the Circle Tower is actually quite close to Redcliffe. Two, if that changes if depending on what you do first, Redcliffe or the Broken Circle. I usually do the Broken Circle first. Like I get on lowering, which obviously at that point you can't really change the order. You go to Ostergard, then you go to lowering. That's when that's where everything becomes acceptable. After lowering, I go and get shale because using shale for most of the game that's a huge bonus. Then I do the warning scheme for the chest. Then I do the Broken Circle to get win. Then I move to Redcliffe.
On my recent playthrough, I went in like basically a straight line of progression, besides going to Redcliffe, like going to the Broken Circle and back. And the thing that really always bugged me is that because like it was a lake, and instead of taking like a boat directly to it across the lake, you had to walk around the edge of the lake. But that was just my griping. But yeah, there was and a lot of the dungeons in general just took too long for me. I think.
For me that was actually good. I actually enjoyed, except for the fade. Because
I enjoy it. Like I enjoy the length of the game, but not when the content is like the content had pacing issues. Like when we're talking about, for example, say the Urn of Sacred Ashes, that quest. I enjoy the puzzles. I really like the boss fight with the dragon, like you said, Lex. But at the same time, they're like 3 different zones of nothing but dungeons.
Yes, that is
there was like zero context to it. It was like the designers basically made these dungeons and made all this content. It was like, oh, we gotta put it together somehow. Let's just slap it on top of each other.
And by the way, there are no cutscenes or further progression.
Yeah, there's nothing.
It's literally just fight enemies through corridor fight. Yeah. I got that from quite a lot of sections in the game too, and it did really bother me because it gets boring, it gets repetitive. I'll tell you one thing that is kind of skipping ahead a bit, but the Legacy DLC for Dragon Age 2 actually does a long dungeon crawl, but does it properly because there are cutscenes that break it up. There's further story progression that breaks it up, and it is just one long ass dungeon, but it's not boring because you're working towards a goal in each kind of section, so it's very different.
Well, do you have anything to say, Carly, before we move on to talking about repetition in Dragon Age 2?
My understanding, the whole dungeon crawling, all that long thing, was more a throwback to Baldur's Gate, which I never played, but apparently that's what it is. It's not. It's done for that.
Yeah, so a lot of the whole game, obviously, when we're talking about Dragon Age Origins, the context is basically it's BioWare attempting to make a new series of its own, because before then, all they did were basically like Wizards of the Coast licensed games, like Neverwinter Nights, like Baldur's Gate, all within a Dungeons and Dragons setting. So for them to come out and produce, this thing of their own, which has to be old school because that's what the fans want. So that's what we got, I guess. And to me, I guess it's fine. On tabletop and Dungeons and Dragons, the dungeoning is in itself a reward, but at the same time, we don't play for, well, most people, they don't play sessions like that consist solely of dungeoning for several hours, and that's what I got from Dragon Age Origins. Yeah.
It's weird because I'm not used to playing games that way, like Origins is. But in Origins, I actually enjoy it. The only exception really for me is the Fade, and it's because they drop you in there and they don't really give you much of an explanation of what you're supposed to do. And if you're on your first playthrough, you're just walking around lost for a lot of hours, and it makes you lose interest in getting out.
The Fade is an easy thing to hate because there's no context to it. There's no like, a lot of it is guesswork, and they don't help you a whole lot. And because there's a lot of backtracking as well, you get into the monotony of it, and there's not a lot to love about the Fade. And obviously, it's the most, skipping the Fade is the most downloaded PC mod. I guess that really says a lot about the quality of the system.
I don't think I could actually do it because once you know what you're supposed to do, it's actually not that bad.
I like the Fade. I don't like the Fade. That is the most blasphemous thing any Dragon Age fan's ever said.
I like its intent, but I don't like it.
I like the setting. I like what the Fade actually is. I don't like the dungeon Fade that they put in Dragon Age Origin. Do you know what I mean? But I like the way you have to kind of fight your party members and stuff. I liked all of those moments. The fact that you're on your own and you're just kind of dropped in there. If I had gone in blind, which I didn't. But if I'd gone in blind, I would have hated it a whole lot more. So
that's what I mean. If you're going in blind, you're going to hate it because you're going to spend hours and hours just completely lost. But once you know what you're supposed to do, then it's actually quite a bit enjoyable. I really like the shape-shifting points, especially the Burning Man and the Golem. Those were fun, extremely fun.
Those were fun. One thing I would say, though, is that it is too long still, even when you know what you're doing. Because I think the Fade took me 3 or 4 hours.
I do it in an hour and 15 minutes, I think.
What?
It took me a while, but my second through. I don't remember my first playthrough, but my first playthrough took ages. But my second playthrough was actually quite fast. Mostly because I was clued into the puzzling, and I knew there was going to be a lot of bullshit backtracking and stuff, so I was kind of more prepared for that. But apart from that, it was the whole thing overall, I guess there is a lot to like about the Fade sections, but there is a lot to hate. I guess that's all there really is to say about it. Do you guys want to talk about Awakening, or just skip straight to Dragon Age 2?
I think we should talk for a little bit about Awakening because it is a kind of major part of the series.
Yeah. And I think it is something that I think they might be dealing with in Inquisition.
I'm really hoping so because one of my, I wouldn't say it's a massive disappointment, but a lot of the characters that you do recruit that are kind of exclusive to Awakening are ignored in Dragon Age 2, completely ignored.
True. When you look at it, I forgot what I was going to say, but it's just the characters was kind of. I didn't mind the characters, but they were just there.
Yeah, there was nothing too special about any of them. I did like the elven lady who was an asshole.
Elena.
She felt like they were trying to do a Morrigan light, but I know that's obviously not the case. But there was kind of that sense of, we don't why are we helping these people? It's not going to benefit us. I was like, it's going to benefit us. You just don't see the long term.
One thing I was talking about earlier was how similar this character is to initial impressions of Morrigan, because she has the same kind of attitude, but with Morrigan it's false or it's naivety.
Yeah.
With her,
it's colored by personality.
She's chaotic stupid. Because getting tricked by Darkspawn into killing a lot of people, that's massively stupid.
Yeah. But the whole thing of Awakening was that the Darkspawn weren't your normal Darkspawn. I guess
but still. the trick they played on her was not particularly hard to figure out. She just went into full vengeance mode and didn't actually think about what was going on. A lot of reviews put it as she was Morrigan without the character development.
No,
I think she had a developed character. It's just that the people probably just didn't appreciate that sort of character development. Like,
the thing is, Morrigan, though, is Morrigan becomes more human as the story goes on, whereas that character becomes less human. In a way.
Well,
she needed a full game for us to actually appreciate and they could actually develop the character properly. She's voiced by Grey Delisle, who's one of my favorite voice actors. I cannot remember the last time Grey Delisle voiced a character that I was particularly a fan of, and that's the first one. And I say I don't really like her, and she's voiced by Grey Delisle.
I actually did kind of like it because like I think her character is more centered around her hatred for humans. And I think that's where her character development went. It went into her, basically her racism, like, with the chip on her shoulder because she thought the humans killed everyone. So in that sense, when you look at it that way, like, she does develop into someone who doesn't, like, and even her epilogue, her section, like, like, if you do all her quests, she, like, it specifically talks about how she saved a group of humans and, like, didn't ask for, like, accolades or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does develop. Like, I have to argue that she does actually develop as a character. It's just not the way that people wanted her to develop. It sounds a little condescending, but my idea is basically that she just, like, it's not the way people expected her to develop.
She does have a moment in the game where she starts, like, arguing with you very loudly, and you can point that out to her, and she's like, okay, fine, you're right. So she's not unaware of the kind of behavior that she has, and if you criticize her for it, she actually takes it in stride, and okay, you're right, I need to change this. So I kind of appreciate it part. But most of the characters in Awakening, the problem is if it was a full game, which is not, it's a really long expansion. It could be
it's a very good expansion. Yeah, I think it had a better pace.
Yeah,
I really honestly don't think it should have been any longer than it was.
No, that was perfect for the expansion fact. But
the main story,
yeah. But the problem is for the characters, a lot of them didn't get a chance to shine because it's an expansion pack, not a complete game. So you ended up with a bunch of characters that some of them you were going to remember. Which one of them was Anders, which almost everyone loved. I really liked him in Awakening. So that's
I really liked Anders in Awakening as well.
I kind of liked him, but I could see where they were going with in Dragon Age 2.
No, you didn't, you liar, because this is everything.
No, I played through, like, we'll talk about this later, but I played through Dragon Age 2 first. I have to admit, I played that first, for some context. When I went back into Awakening, I could see where those character traits are coming from. That's my approach to it.
That's the problem, because you play Dragon Age 2 first, then you go back and you look for those things that are gonna lead.
I don't think that's necessarily the wrong approach, though. Like, if you look at it from that angle, then it's easier to see where he turns into that, vengeance in Dragon Age 2.
No.
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later, but we're in complete disagreement here.
But, like, okay, so...
Yeah, we should discuss what happens to Anders later, since it's...
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the next
topic. But I did, for the record, I really liked Anders and Awakening.
I did too. I was like, wait, once they announced him in Dragon Age 2, I was like, okay, I really like him. And they make it a love interest too. Okay, I might actually romance him because I hadn't romanced a male character in the Dragon Age series because to me, they weren't comparable to the females. It was a big difference. But you have some of the other characters. You have Sigrun. With more time, she would have actually been a pretty good character. She needed more time. Like, I don't think a lot of people know this, but her voice actress, Natasha Sigliuti, is the voice actress for Morant in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
Gigantic.
I didn't care too much for Morant, so yeah. I think someone who really benefited from who had some really good screen time was Ogryn. I think keeping Ogryn in Awakening was a really good choice. Because he served as the anchor between Origins and Dragon Age and Awakening.
They needed an anchor. They needed an anchor, and I know that they chose Ogryn.
A returning character, yeah.
Most people said more somewhere late in the story.
Because he came late, you know, he needed the time for it.
Ogryn's an asshole.
I love it. Like, I didn't actually like him a whole lot in Origins, but like when he came in Dragon Age Awakening, that was like I warmed up to him a lot more because I gave him the time to develop his character. To talk about his family duty and everything, and yeah, you know.
To me, the thing is, because I actually did like him a lot in Origins, because I could see that the personality that he was showing to everyone was just really masking the issues that he was going through. That he was just a sad clown. I think the problem with a lot of people is that since you have all the other characters, they're really well developed, and you have Ogryn, who comes, for most people, is going to come late in the game.
Right. Yeah.
You have an underdeveloped character next to a lot of well-developed characters, and I think that's the issue for people that don't like him. But then they brought him in Awakening from the start, and they actually got to develop all those things that you saw bits of it in Origins.
He gets the love he deserves, basically. Like, even though you still get his, like, oh, I'm a drunk dwarf, isn't that funny? And that's really tropey, but at the same time, you know.
Yawn.
I wish they'd done something like the same thing with Wade and Heron.
They actually were pretty good in Awakening.
They were great. Oh, the Wade and Heron, I think, are the best NPCs out of all of Origins and Awakening.
I wish they would have come back to Dragon Age 2.
You're saying that about Plymouth as an NPC?
No, you know what? I like Wade and Heron more than Flemeth. Controversial.
No.
I like them more. I like them more. I'll fight you over.
No.
More studios hidden.
I mean they're hilarious, but Flemeth.
I think that the games just really needed like a proper NPC comedic duo like Wade and Heron.
Yes.
I think it was a perfect side arc, because especially when you get into Denerim, and it's like the biggest shithole, and it's really kind of depressing going around and like going back to the alienage and having all these problems and stuff. I think the game needs sort of that.
Should we quickly talk about the story and Awakening?
Yes, because we have before we get to that, that's one thing that I absolutely hate about Awakening, is that even if you don't have people in your party, if you do an action that they don't like, they still disapprove of it, even though they're not there, which I find completely ridiculous. Yes.
Wow, I did not know that. I never came across that.
Really?
You get disapproval from party members that aren't actually in your party.
I've never encountered something like that. Like that, I can't say for sure, but that sounds like a bug.
Check it out. It does happen.
But then again, I never. Yeah, but then again, I never actually made a whole lot of this. Like, there never were a huge amount of decisions.
You don't really have the same
in Awakening,
kind of. Yeah.
Because it just wasn't as big. Yeah. I mean, the regular diamond. No, I never came across those problems. It might have been a bug. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, the big thing with Awakening.
The Darkspawn.
No, specifically the Architect.
Yeah, Darkspawn and the Architect. Yeah. I didn't think the twist was as strong as it could have been. I mean, like when the Broodmother's like, oh, did you know the Architect caused the new blight? And I was like, oh, well, okay, fair enough.
I haven't read any of the Mass Effect novels, but from what I hear, I chose to keep the Architect alive, I think. And from what I hear, reading the novels kind of makes him a lot more... His backstory is essentially more evil than he lets on during Awakening.
Oh, okay.
I would just... By the way, you said Mass Effect novels.
What did I... Sorry. Dragon Age.
Stop.
I was like, where are you going in the Mass Effect novels? But anyway. Yeah.
I would say he's an amoral character. The way he sees things is that black and white. He sees blue and orange
Yeah, he's very, he's a lot, like, I wouldn't say he's inherently evil, but like Flemeth, he has an agenda, and we don't know, like, what it is, even, like, when we agree to it, to do, like, his dirty work for him. But I do like that their intent to make the Darkspawn less like monsters and more like actual thinking beings. I think that's a really interesting approach. But like we'll see how they approach that in Inquisition, because in Inquisition obviously it's not about the Darkspawn at all. It's just about straight up demons.
Yep.
You gotta remember that where the Darkspawn come from. They were people before. They got tainted.
Yeah, they got tainted.
So you can see where some of them actually getting intelligence would come from, because they were people before. With the Arcanine, I gotta be honest, it's the same with Origins. I made a lot of decisions later on after a few playthroughs that I didn't do them because I thought, oh, this is the right decision, this is the bad decision. I did them purely because I thought, oh, this is gonna be a fascinating storyline going forward. And that's really good inside the Architect. Because I read the novel. I read the novel. He did some pretty fucked up things in that novel, but I saved him purely because I want to see where that goes.
That is one of the reasons I have such a hard time killing anyone off in Dragon Age, because even though they're evil, it's like I want to see them show up in the future, and I want to see how they've changed, and I want to see what they do.
Exactly for me, except for one person, which we'll get on to once we go to Dragon Age 2. That's the only
I'm looking forward to that. I'm about to finish my playthrough, and I'm actually really looking forward to killing that character off. But anyway, I just want to say how goofy like the Architect sounds. Like he has this, like he's basically sounds like he's got like a lollipop stuck in his mouth, and he's trying to talk through it. But anyway, like he has this really terrible lisp, and it's like his airways are blocked.
Did anyone want to puke when they saw the Brood Mother?
Yeah, she's gross. There's not much to say about it. Brood Mothers are gross in general.
That was not a particular pretty picture that got into my head after I saw her.
Yeah.
And the mother too.
Yeah.
Once at the end, when you finally beat the mother and the warden just gets the murder knife and just stabs her, I was like, you can keep the knife. I don't even want it back.
Oh god, the whole Brood Mother thing. Oh, it's so creepy. So creepy. Anyway. Yes, we'll move on to Dragon Age 2.
Yes, please.
Yes. And we'll go on about what we really like about it and what we really don't like about it, because there's a lot in both. A lot in Camp A, a lot in Camp B.
I can tell you what Lex really liked about Dragon Age 2 that he didn't like in Origins.
What was that?
The gameplay.
Yes, very much so. I went into Dragon Age 2 on the back of a lot of criticism. I know how badly received that game was amongst the fans.
So you curbed your enthusiasm beforehand.
I curbed my enthusiasm, yeah. And it is definitely built. I know why. The criticism is because the gameplay is kind of more suited for consoles in certain aspects. And as a console player, I was relieved as shit as soon as I turned it on, because it is so much fun playing as a rogue. I play as a rogue and just running around and the combo attacks, and I just really enjoyed it.
That was my first playthrough as well. It really left a great impression on me. I played the demo, so I knew what I was getting into. And that was at launch. So.
Oh, there you go then. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. It's not a terrible game, but compared to Origins, it's especially the reused dungeons and stuff.
Yeah, an easy argument.
You won't notice if we start you off in a different part of this same dungeon 6 times, and it becomes a bit confusing at a certain point. So that was obviously one of the things I didn't like about it. I didn't like that there wasn't really any exploration beyond these few areas that they give to you. I think I preferred the menu system, definitely. And the quest log and stuff didn't make me want to claw out my own eyeballs. I barely looked at the quest log in Origins, and every time I had to do it, it just drove me nuts.
Oh, BioWare. That's one of BioWare's big problems. Their inventories are kind of not great. And their codexes and journals, like the codexes are alright because it's just extra stuff you read. But the journals that list your quests are often really badly designed.
Well, the codex and journals in Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2 were okay, and
they
then
were okay. Mass Effect 3,
they ruined
what
it.
happened? Oh my goodness, it was a huge clusterfuck. But anyway, that's yeah. I think Dragon Age 2 in that respect was a lot better. I guess you could say that. It was fairly well categorized, I suppose.
Okay, can we make it into a drinking game every time Lex brings Mass Effect?
I don't mind. I mean, like I like Mass Effect as much. Like I will it's an easy comparison to make.
Yeah, because
especially for Dragon Age 2, which they went into voiced characters, right?
I think that was one of the main criticisms from fans from Dragon Age Origins, that they didn't like the Dragon Age 2 brought more of Mass Effect. It brought the dialogue tree. It brought a voice character.
Ever, because obviously I started on that which shall not be named, but I've used the dialogue wheel to a list of 5 text options. I think it's much more intuitive.
Yeah, I think there's a place for both in RPGs. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like what I see online, a lot of the arguments talk about, oh, this isn't my character because I can't make as many choices, or something along those lines. And I think it really depends because for Dragon Age 2, I think the way they'd written it was, I think Aaron Flynn recently talked about what the difference was in the narrative between Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Origins, and he was talking about, oh, this is less about a story of your character as a story about BioWare's character, I suppose. I think I was paraphrasing there, but yeah. And so I think for when they were trying to portray Hawk as a separate character from the players, then I think the voiced option is better.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely love that. I think they should use that all the time now, just having the 3 different personalities, because I absolutely love using sarcasm.
Oh yeah, sarcastic Hawk. Everyone loves sarcasm Hawk. Everyone.
Sarcastic Hawk is the best Hawk.
Or as Barry calls him, Shuckles.
Yeah. I just encountered that during Mark of the Assassin, but I want to go on to talk about that later. The voicing is good. It's not like Mass Effect, where the first Mass Effect where you tried to get into the voices, and it was like Mark Mir and Jennifer Hale and that sort of argument. But the voices in Dragon Age 2 were solid. And I'm really glad to
me, they were both equal, which is something Mass Effect lacked. All the time, because Mark Mir wasn't in the category that Jennifer Hale was. For me, the argument is, do you prefer having the kind of player character that the one is in Dragon Age Origins, which is basically just you inserting into that character and you choosing those dialogues? Or do you like creating this character like you do in Dragon Age 2, like you do in the Mass Effect series? Honestly, I prefer the latter. Just having created that character and it has their own personality, where you can see and they have their voice. But I can see why some other people don't like it.
Yeah, I suppose it's basically like setting the character a little bit more on autopilot, where you still make the choices, but at the same time, you decide where the character goes, but at the same time you're not in full control. And I think that's what unsettles some people. That's what they don't like about it. But I think both have their place. I think both have their advantages and disadvantages, and it's not. For me, I don't think it's easy to say that this should be here, this should be there. Go on.
I think at this point in where we're going with video games, just having a character that doesn't have a voice, you can't really tell their personalities. That's not really all that entertaining anymore. It was a few years ago, it was a decade ago, but not really anymore.
I've made the argument before that not having a voiced player character appeals to a certain audience and makes it easier for some people to insert themselves into the role of that character. For me, I to be able to connect with a character that I am controlling, I need them to be voiced now. I didn't like it in Origins that there was no dialogue from the player character, and I loved it in Dragon Age 2. And really, I loved Origins. I really did end up loving Origins. I didn't start out loving it, especially with the gameplay that I didn't like. But Dragon Age 2 really sealed the deal for me. If this is where the series is going, and they're bringing in the exploration and the choices and the kind of massive sort of companion options you've got in Dragon Age 1 to Inquisition with the gameplay and a voice protagonist of Dragon Age 2. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
Inquisition seems to be hitting that sweet spot from what I've seen, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
The problem, especially the problem that people don't really realize with having a player character like the Warden, is when you go to a third game or a second game, when you have a different character as your player character, and you want to bring the character you used to have as a separate character that you're no longer controlling, what are you gonna do with him? Because they don't have that base personality that you can do with Hawk and Dragon Age 2, and that's a problem with Inquisition, because how would you portray the Warden in a way that most people will be satisfied with it? Because everyone will play the Warden in a different manner, but they don't have a set personality like the one in Dragon Age 2 has.
Yeah. I think that's probably why the import options for the Warden aren't less present, and that's why what we've seen from the trailers that Hawk has some FaceTime in Inquisition. So.
Possibly the Warden is not going to be in a position for that very reason.
Yeah, so, I think they'll, apparently they have missions, pertaining that involve them, but I'm not sure. But they probably won't have, that's my speculation that they probably, the Warden will probably not show up.
Okay.
Do we go over the? Yeah, we went over the voices. I guess they have a place. It depends.
Yeah.
And also it also comes down to costs. We're talking about these big development, these big RPGs, and sometimes it just comes down to whether you can afford to do these voices. Because David Geider, I think he said a lot of this on his Tumblr, and he's talking about the actual resources required to bring in a voice actor and go through, hundreds and thousands of lines, and it's a seriously time-consuming thing. I mean, and we talk about they often make the comparison to The Witcher. That's a lot of Western RPG players. They compare Dragon Age voicing to The Witcher.
Yeah.
And The Witcher is basically, sure, there are heaps of options. There's only one character. Is Geralt. And so there's only that much amount of work, but when you, when you give them more voice actors, Inquisition has, 4, I believe? Two different accents for either gender, I believe. I don't know if Carl.
Yeah. There's American and Old English for.
Yeah. So even that's a huge people just oh, that's good, that's more choice. But some people, they don't realize how much more work that is. It's literally 4 times the work.
My first thought when I heard that was, oh crap, there's going to be a lot less dialogue. Huge.
Yeah, and even Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age 2, that was a lot of work, but even that was fairly light on choice.
Yeah.
And there's it's just basically that's what one of the things that gets me really excited about Inquisition is that they've put in the work, and they've managed to. There's a lot of things, but they've reached the same amount of depth of Origins, but with the same amount of work that they put into Dragon Age 2, if not more. That's an argument for later.
Okay. To me, with Dragon Age 2 specifically. With the characters, it's gonna how do I say this? the voice characters. You get Hawk that's gonna show up in Inquisition. We already seen that in some of the trailers.
Yep.
But my thing is, are they going to? First of all, can I change his character appearance? Is it gonna be a custom appearance, or is it gonna be the default appearance? And other than that, is it really gonna have the personality that I had him through Dragon Age 2?
Talking about the Warden, is it?
No,
Or
I mean
just
Hawk. Because
Hawk.
well, I'm not gonna be controlling him. I do have another character now. He still is the character that I had in Dragon Age 2. That I want to see him act the way I made him be throughout the game.
Yeah. And that's also like and I believe Laidlaw said that you will be able to customize Hawk.
I hope so.
Well,
I believe he said that on Twitter. But I'm not sure how they're going to implement that. Whether it's through the Dragon Age Keep.
I don't think so.
Which we'll talk about later. But the Keep certainly, like with the Keep, you're certainly already. We know that for a fact that you can dictate the personality choice. Like we know that for a fact. Because that's a straight up choice in the Dragon Age Keep, like which personality was Hawk.
It does say what kind of personality you have.
Yeah. But we'll talk about the Keep later. Dragon Age 2 specifically, I guess. It has its place.
I've given my opinion on how much I like the gameplay in Dragon Age 2.
Yeah. I like the gameplay.
I really did like the gameplay. The problem is, when you start off the game and you go to Kirkwall, it does feel like a big city, but it only does at first. It's like it's a mirror trick where you put a lot of mirrors in all the place to make the place look bigger.
I guess.
But that only works for a little bit. At some point, you're gonna realize that this is an illusion.
I think you realise it's an illusion when you are forced to run around the city 1,000 times, though. It's not a case of... as soon as you get to know the area, it starts to seem a lot smaller, and it's the same in games like even Grand Theft Auto. If you play it a lot, you get to know a certain area. Like the more recent games have been so massively huge that it's not mattered, but if you look at like early PS2 titles like Grand Theft Auto 3, there's very small areas, and Kirkwall is not big at all.
It's just copy like for me, area after the other.
Yeah. No, I think like the way they did it, I think they really did the best of what they could, but they did not have a lot to start with. To be honest, they didn't have the time.
They got screwed over by EA. A game like that, especially a BioWare game, an RPG, is not going to be made in 11 months.
But I think they did really well.
Firmly in the camp. Yeah, definitely. I'm just firmly in the camp that it shouldn't have been called Dragon Age 2.
See, well, from what I know, from what I know, the game was supposed to be like a spin-off, not the actual sequel. But because they had so little time to actually make I may be wrong about this, but I remember reading about it once. But because they were giving only 11 months to make a sequel to Dragon Age Origins, then that ended up being as a sequel. One of the composers from Dragon Age 2 actually quit, and thinking about all the detail, they said basically what you're seeing is the beta version of what Dragon Age 2 is supposed to be. And yeah, it's fairly obvious, because the way the game is structured, the whole you get to go into 3-year periods through Hawk's stay in Kirkwall. That's really interesting. The problem is that because they didn't have time, you couldn't really see how his actions really change once you go to one of the time scales into another. If they had time, you could see in the environment how
change in the environment. Yeah.
There were very few quests that actually like threw you a bunch of different decisions once you hit another act.
Yeah.
A lot of the quests were always straightforward, no matter what decisions you end up making. Like they still pushed you into the same place, even if you went in a completely different direction the act before.
Well, I think
Like
that
the
like.
whole- Sorry.
I think the time skips were sort of like sufficient enough to, sort of explain away these sorts of like big changes. But yeah, I feel they could have done a lot better with it.
Let's look at the rebel mages from Starkhaven. In Act 1, you can just let the Templars take them. You can fight the Templars, or you can convince the Templars that they're not there. But
Okay.
by Act 2, no matter which of the decisions that you made, you still end up in the same place.
What do you mean by that?
The Lady Maze, the one that turns evil, they still get captured, and she still blames you, even if you killed the Templars or you convinced the Templars to leave. And by Act 3, it doesn't matter because it all ends up in the same, like, that group kidnapped one of your, if you have your siblings alive, they kidnap your
Kidnaps your
siblings.
sibling, yeah.
Love
I
interest.
just
It all
played through that.
ends up in the same direction. It's one of the reasons why I hated the Mass Effect 3 ending, because no matter which way you went into the ending, you still got there no matter how.
Yeah, I see that as a really common argument. I get where that's coming from, but like at the same time, I feel that the choices may not have been like the end game may have been already there because like obviously they wanted it to end Dragon Age 2 in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was all about the illusion of choice. Because let's face it, like a lot of RPGs, like choices and consequences, really all an illusion of choice to get from point A to point B. And I felt that the choices that the consequences that happened in like especially with that arc in particular, I felt it was thematically different enough for there to like there weren't huge differences or grand sweeping changes like there were in Origins, but at the same time, stuff with the Templars and the mages and the whole whatnot, and like the dialogue turns out differently for a start, even though the outcome is usually the same. And I think the changes that do like the differences that like even though the outcomes are very similar, I feel they're reasonable. I feel like they're outcomes that would have happened if you'd picked those particular choices. Even though there aren't huge differences. The problem with Mass Effect 3 ending, which we could probably spend 3 hours talking about in a separate podcast, is the fact that they didn't really explain the outcome, and it didn't seem very reasonable. I mean, I love the game, but yeah, it had its huge problems. But yeah, the choices and consequences, yeah.
A lot of the criticism directed towards Dragon Age 2, which I never understood, is that a lot of people didn't like the ending because it was too sad and too depressing. It wasn't a good ending. But when you start off the game, you already know that things weren't to shit. The point is that you've shown how we got here.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that.
I didn't have a problem with it either. I actually thought it was really fascinating because it was something that BioWare had never done before. The only problem for me is that they didn't have time to actually develop it properly. But I always loved that about the game because it was so different from what you're used to seeing in a BioWare game.
You know, we keep talking about how they didn't have time to develop it properly. I feel like that's more geared toward talking about assets-free dungeons and areas rather than the actual story itself.
Yeah. But the narrative itself, I think, is one of the best things that they've ever done. Like it was so like
it's so
because
different.
and that is one of the exact same reasons that people will hate it, and that's really what makes Dragon Age 2, I think, so divisive. But for me, like going from Origins, which really the narrative structure not special. Like, not even the overarching story, which is go on a grand quest and unite the people to defeat an archdemon. It's not really great material.
I agree.
I felt it was really derived. And then they just said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to scale it down. We're going to make it a very personal story. We're going to talk about, these particular, issues and, lead it up to a big conflict at the end. And so that people got from that, what people got from that impression was like, oh, it's just It's a side story. It shouldn't be called Dragon Age 2. Which is something I think you touched on a bit, Carly. But getting a little off topic, the narrative structure, I believe, was one of the best things that they did because it also allowed them to show a really big change in their characters. Because,
Yes.
like, they specifically say, this game takes place over 6 years. And between those 3 time skips...
It's 7.
Oh, 7
7 years.
The back of the box
I thought it was
actually.
6.
The back of the box actually says it takes place over 10 years.
Oh,
Well,
that's
the half
weird.
story takes place over 7 years. The last 3 years is going to the present where Barrett is telling the story to
Varric is,
Cassandra.
And I think Varric, like, they should have done so much more with Varric's framing of narrative. Like I felt that they could have, like, they should have made that the centerpiece of the storytelling. Because obviously we know that, but like they only cap the beginning and the end of each act with Varric's narration.
Yeah, that's true.
Cassandra's interrogation.
There is
I felt that
the
they should have-
random bit when you're doing Varric's quest in Act 3 as well, where he does
Yeah,
kind of...
yeah. So every now and then, and they do that for DLC as well. But I felt that they should have done it for, say, not every single quest, but every story quest that was significant.
Yeah.
And that would have also been able to, tell the player which ones were significant as well. So that way, you didn't necessarily go into a story quest like, oh, I'll just do this and then I'll go back and finish off the side quests. But instead you've progressed the plot, and now you suddenly can't go back and do it. But that's a minor thing, but I felt they really should have, like, focused on Varric's narration as a way to structure the narrative.
To me,
but yeah.
the game has 2 massive problems. One of them being, most of your love interests are bi, that you can romance them with a female character and you can romance them with a male character. But outside of Isabella, let's say if you're playing as a male character and let's say you're gonna romance Meryl, there's no indication if you're romancing her as a male character that she actually likes women. That's like dependent to the character's actual sex. If you're a female, it's female.
Yeah.
With Anders, if you're playing as a female,
He doesn't mention
Carl, no, they're just friends. There's no indication that they were a couple.
Yeah.
It's only if you play as a male that they actually bring up the fact that they're a couple. And
I don't like the common argument is that they're called player sexual, I suppose.
I don't think that's good. That's not good storytelling. That's not good.
I'm not sure how I feel about that though, because everyone is bisexual in quotation marks isn't representation. Really, it's not. BioWare are excellent for representation. They're the best, probably.
I don't mind. Like, I think it just comes down to the idea of choice, I guess.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me because the reason it didn't bother me was because those 4 specific characters have no reason not to be bisexual. Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas Sebastian is following the theme. He works for the Chantry, kind of follows the themes of Christianity, etc., etc., etc. Probably wouldn't be bisexual in a medieval setting, if we're being honest.
Yeah. So kind of conservative. Yeah.
Fenris could be easily. Isabella definitely is.
And Isabella, I believe, is the only one that states outright that she's been with.
Yeah, because that's what I mean.
That's her character.
Yeah, that was already brought up in Origins. You already knew that. That doesn't change. That's part of her character.
Yeah, and I think that's that's also what it comes down to, is that it's a sense that the BioWare are trying to get a sense of what's in character and what's serving the character and what's serving the game. And I believe that player sexual choice is more about serving the game and giving more choice to the player, rather than would this be in character for Anders, or would it be in character for Meryl? But yeah, I didn't mind that in particular. I can see how that'd be an issue. It certainly was an issue for a lot of players when it just happened.
It is a bit of an issue with Anders though, and that's kind of, I think Anders might be the most popular kind of homosexual romance choice for most male players, but
For some reason.
for some reason.
Yeah. And that was funny, like, because like people, I remember this like when it first came out, and players were like, "Why is Anders suddenly hitting on me? Ew!" And they're like, "Why are you forcing homosexual romance on my?"
I get that there's a bunch of homophobes running around saying that.
Yeah.
My romance standards as a male hawk, I
Which you definitely forgot.
I regretted it later, but no, I think it's a problem that he, because he states in Awakening that he's always talking about women, pretty much in Awakening.
Yeah.
He talks about women, and he talks about women that he's been with in Awakening, and they kind of retconned him a bit there.
They reckon a lot of shit from Awakening.
Okay, so Carly's dying to talk about more of Anders, so why don't we get right into it? The things we like and the things we don't like. That's what it's all about. So
there's absolutely nothing that I like about Anders in Dragon Age 2. That's not Anders from Awakening. At this point, after a while,
it's not though. That's the thing. It's not Anders from Awakening, right? Because the characters has been merged.
No. My headcanon after a while was that the Anders from Awakening, he stayed with the Grey Wardens. He stayed in Amaranthine. He stayed with his cats, Sir Poncelat.
My brother with the same name.
This is just an imposter that's pretending to be Anders, because that was not the Anders I like.
For me, well, first things first. Like in the epilogue for Awakening, Anders leaves the Wardens at some point, no matter what.
No, that's not in all of the epilogues.
It's not in it's not in all of the epilogues. Sometimes he just dies. But like
and mine,
he leaves the Wardens. Like if you do all the quests, he comes back eventually, but he always leaves at that point. That's his epilogue. Yeah,
but that doesn't mean there's nothing relatable to the Anders in Dragon Age 2.
Yeah, but then they talk about how eventually Justice disappears, and basically what I think was that BioWare, when I forgot who it was, Gaida, I think he wrote for Anders in the beginning. I could be wrong, but he handed it off to Hepler.
That was a great
and
idea.
They basically just put one and one together and said that, you know what, let's merge Anders and Justice together. And I felt that the progression that happened, I actually didn't mind the way he progressed. He's obviously a shit character, but he turns into a shit person by the end of it because of his possession. And he basically is an abomination.
I don't think you can put it down to just that though, because I have said in my criticism when I finished Dragon Age 2 that they should have bridged the gap more. Because Anders was a really kind of fun character in Awakening. It was funny. Yeah. It was enjoyable to be around. I can understand him going a bit emo. I really can. About the mages, and
he turns into a fanatic, basically.
Yeah, he does even mention in Awakening a couple of times that he's unhappy about the way mages are treated and blah blah blah. So I can see the way he went being an actual progression of his character.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think they should have done more in Act 1 and Act 2 to bridge the gap between the way he behaves in Awakening and the way he behaves in Dragon Age 2. Because it's not believable. Yeah. It's really not.
If you had the Anders in Act 1, instead of being that one, it would have been like that later on, it would have been more believable. But
he did have some, like, occasionally he would joke, and it would be like, it'd be pretty left field, but it would happen every now and then.
Yeah, but that's only in Act 1. In Act 1, it shouldn't be like, oh, well, occasionally, when Act 1 and Awakening are months from each other.
Yeah, but I think they focus more on his position. I think.
But they took a little bit of what he was in Awakening, the things they mentioned in Awakening, his unhappiness with the way the Templars and the mages or the situation, and they just turned that to 11 and made his entire character over that. There are a lot of things about his character in Act 1. They were never part of him in Awakening.
Such as?
he becomes a very clingy person, which he was never in Awakening. Like,
It becomes clingy after. I mean, this is after the 7-year period has passed, though, or 6-year period has passed.
Yeah. No, and even with the 6-year period, like every now and then, like especially if you do his if you get the gift and you go through that side quest of getting him the gift, and you actually go through a lot of conversation strings that are actually quite old Anders sort of thing. And I feel that this was actually, like, the more I played through it, the more I felt it was actually a conscious design decision to make this transition. I agree that the transition could have been handled a lot better, but, like, from what they intended to make of Anders, I felt that, it was actually quite reasonable.
I'm kind of surprised, though, that in Dragon Age 2 they chose to give him such a crazily large role. I know they gave Varric a very large role as well, but it really... You could kind of ignore the rest of the companions and just focus on Varric and Anders.
Well, Anders, I think his role really comes in at Act 3. It's kind of there in Act 1 and 2, but because Act 1 is all about the Deep Roads and Act 2 is all about the Qunari, I feel that it's not like... You can basically leave out Anders for most of the first 2 acts.
Yeah.
I wish I could have done that. Like, he would not be there right now.
I didn't mind it. I mean, I hate Anders either way, because I went back to Awakening and I played through it. I was like, I can see where this is going. I can see how he happened, basically, in Dragon Age 2.
Yeah.
Because his opinions in Dragon Age in Awakening were already, on the Mage Templar conflict, were already quite sort of out there.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that what ended up in Dragon Age 2, once you were playing Awakening, you're like, oh, this was totally where he was coming from.
And I feel they should have probably, even if it was a drastic change, I feel if they'd explained the effect of justice a little more, because
definitely.
By then he has turned into vengeance.
I also feel like that was their linchpin / get out of jail free card, using justice as an excuse.
True.
Because I think they write the story, they knew they were going to include Anders, and they knew how they were going to. They knew that Anders was going to be the linchpin of the situation to start the war between the Mages and the Templars, and I think they thought. I don't know. I'm completely making this up, but I think they probably thought, well, how do we get him there? We can't just say Anders becomes this way. We have to have something else, and so they went, "Oh, let's have justice possess him and then turn bad."
Yeah, but I think at that point, the narrative, or they already say how justice was his hold on what's his face, whatever his name was, that Grey Warden, he was already kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't really and he had to give the body back so he could get a proper burial. So I think it wasn't entirely an unreasonable course of events, but at the same time, they could have. It did feel like a bit of a story crutch. But at the same time, like I said, if they'd implemented a little better, made the effects of Justice's transition into vengeance a little more gradual, or at least better explained. Because they really didn't explain his transformation into vengeance. So from what I'm assuming is that he because of Anders' personality, Justice was transformed already by the time we meet him. But that's my take on it, so I don't know.
In the end, whatever bad behavior he had, or however you could have stand him and try to pass it off of it's justice, it turned into vengeance, that's what's controlling him. When he blows up the church, it's done. And there was no chance that I was gonna let him live after that. That he was gonna be one of the worst characters I ever had in a video game. After that point.
I've managed to separate my hate for the character with the hate for the writing. But I agree.
See, to be honest, I do kind of see a lot of hypocrisy in the fandom, because Isabella, through very, very selfish actions, causes a lot of destruction herself.
Oh, yeah, I loathe
everyone loves Isabella because she's funny, and no one likes what Anders did because he's whiny. And
but there's a difference.
Well, I know there's a difference. Isabella is well aware of what's going on around her and why it's happening.
Yeah. My first playthrough, I romanced Isabella, Yeah, and I was like, oh, she's alright, she's kind of joking. But then I played through it recently, and well, this time because she actually left my party for good after Act 2, so that probably colored my opinion of it a bit. But it never struck me until then how selfish Isabella was,
It's actually really
and how
bad because
short-sighted it was. Yeah, and
the
and
entirety of Act 1 and Act 2, she is traveling around with Hawk and truly knowing every single repercussion of her actions and basically not giving a shit. Whereas Anders, although he has very good reasons to be a hated character, he actually has a reason for his actions.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Isabella is purely being selfish.
Yeah, but here's the difference. You can't, you couldn't know that it was gonna end up the way it did. That the Kunari were going to go into this rampage of the city. That doesn't excuse her actions. If I think she was lying the whole time, that she didn't do anything until everything went to shit. But the difference is she didn't actively set out for that to happen. Whereas Anders, what happened was what he wanted to happen. He set out for to kill all those people and to cause a war. That's the main difference for me.
But the motivation
I think
behind it, I think, matters because Isabella's motivations were really selfish and Anders actually weren't.
I think they were basically both shit people at the end of the day. Because with Isabella, it was so short-sighted and it was so selfish, and she knew the repercussions, but she didn't care, and she basically oh, it's your problem now, Hawk.
The repercussions, you couldn't have known that it was gonna end up the way.
Oh, you definitely would have seen that the Kunai.
Oh, come on, really?
But in Act, not in Act 1, by Act 2, where everything.
No, not in Act 2.
By Act 2, now that everything was going together, yes, but not in Act 1. Anders has set out for that, for what happened. He wanted that to happen. That's not what he said. I'm not excusing her. They were extremely selfish what she did, and that's one of the things that sets me up from actually really, really loving her character, even though I do really love her character, but she's not on my list of favorite characters because of that. But the difference is she didn't set out for that to happen. She didn't intend that for happen. Her silentness preventing her from realizing what was gonna happen. But Anders, the result of his action is exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, for me, it's like they both actively ignored the ramifications, and so for me that's just
Anders didn't ignore them. The ramification, that's what he wanted it.
Yeah, the ramifications were what he was looking for, but his motivations were to make this thing come to a head, and I don't enjoy it.
Both of them give me really easy reasons to hate them now.
Well, the thing is, I actually really enjoy Isabella's dialogue, and I enjoy her as a character, and she makes me laugh. But the moment I played to the end of Act 2 and went to Act 3, I was like, I don't like you at all. I still like having her in my party because she has some hilarious banter. But that is the thing. If they got more of Awakening Anders into his character, I think a lot more people would be a lot more sympathetic to what he actually does at the end of the game.
I will concede that the big difference between Isabella and Anders is that you can change Isabella. You can't do that with Anders.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that to some degree with Anders, but not as much. I mean, from right here, you can actually force him to kill mages, which is absolutely great. I want to try that. But I don't think I'll be able to.
That would involve fighting with the Templars.
But it would be the sweetest form of justice. It'll be so great to just you cause this, you fix it. You kill these mages for me.
I've been really tempted to do that a few times to just side with the Templars.
Yeah, I think I'll probably end up killing him.
Not kill Anders and just make him side with the Templars too, because that's really the only form of punishment that I think would be so perfect.
That would be so. I will see if I can do it, but I don't think I can. I'll concede with Isabella. You can change her mind. She can come back if you do the right things and you reach the right level of friendship or whatever. But apart from that, her vanilla Isabella is already kind of really, really didn't like it. Her choices are just selfish and actively hurtful. But yeah, anyway. What else? Is there anything else?
Because they're not. That's not what she's like she was trying to, that's not what she was meaning to do. It's why one of the reasons why.
I think
that doesn't excuse it though. I mean,
I'm not excusing. I'm just
really,
saying why I like her character and why I don't like Anders. What difference for me is.
the reason you like Isabella though is really because she's funny and she's a cool character to have around and her dialogue's cool and well, that's why you like Isabella. You would also like Anders if it'd been written well. And he had fun stuff.
Not up to before he would have blown up the church, yes, but that point when you actively do something like that and your intentions is for a war to happen, no, it wouldn't have mattered how likable, how charming, or how funny it would have been.
To be perfectly honest, if Anders' writing had been more to my taste, shall we say, if he had been written more like his awakening character throughout Dragon Age 2, even though he was possessed by justice, then, and only then, I would probably like him as much as I like Isabella, to be perfectly honest. But his character was completely assassinated by the way he was written. I'm not going to say that the writing was terrible. I don't think the writing was great, but I really don't think it was utterly terrible for Anders' character.
I tend to sort of like distance my hate for a character from the hate for a writing, but that's my personal thing. Like, and I think like sometimes for some people that is hard to distinguish. Like whether it's separating a character's separating a hate for a character because they do reprehensible things, as compared to a character who's been written badly. Or
something that would have something I think that would have alleviated a lot of the hate for Anders is even if after he did it he turned around and said something like, depending on obviously your morality and how you react to the situation, oh god, what have I done? Like,
I think,
he never ever does that. That's
I believe
the thing.
Depending on your relationship with Anders, he actually if you're super friends with Anders, he asks Hawk to kill him because he knows that vengeance has completely taken over and that he's incapable of making rational decisions. Which I think is an interesting thing.
That's only actually if you have a 100% rival.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Rival.
100% friend. He's just kind of like, I know what I did was bad. You can kill me if you want.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well,
I had him at 100 friend, and I know that. Basically, the rival.
Is it I think he's really smug about it, isn't he, as well?
He is kind of, yeah, and it's kind of infuriating because I actually romanced Anders, and I did his quest, so I became complicit in actually what happened.
I didn't actually and for my context, like I mentioned earlier, I played Awakening after 2, so for me, I could see where it was going, and I was like, oh well, that's. It's not exactly a route I would have expected, but it can happen.
It's almost impossible if you're romancing him at 100% friendship, or if you just have 100% friendship. It is almost impossible to justify not killing him, because I really wanted to kill him, and the only reason I didn't is because I wanted the romance trophy.
On my first playthrough, I saved him.
You only get that with Anders if you leave him alive and then reconfirm the romance later, and it's I'll never do it again. I just can't do it. However, the rival romance or having him at 100% rival actually almost gives him kind of justification for his actions, because throughout the game you can see him becoming unraveled if you're a rival with him. Yes. And he can't control. He goes on about how he can't control vengeance, and vengeance is taking over him, and he's got black spots in his memory where he doesn't remember what he's done and doesn't know what he's about to do. So. Yeah. That almost justifies his actions.
Yeah, you remember the companion quest in Act 3 where you actually gather ingredients for a bomb from him?
Yeah.
Cause one of the ingredients is literally saltpeter, and that's like potassium nitrate for a bomb. So you basically building a bomb from it, and at the end of it, when he thanks you, he has the creepiest face on, and it's the most unnerving thing I've ever seen in the game. So I was like, yep, he is literally off his rocker, and I have just supplied him with the bomb. So it was nice, and that was the moment, I think, where the hate for Anders just reaches that point. But I think some of the other characters are really nice. like I would argue some of the best BioWare characters. Some people will also argue they're some of the weakest, but I really enjoy like characters like Varric's an easy one to love.
Varric is the first war character I've ever liked.
Yeah. So because he's also very practical. He's an obvious sort of like subversion of what a dwarf is, as opposed to Oggren, who is every bit the stereotype. The Varric, he doesn't have a beard. He's really big on his chest hair. He holds a crossbow. He doesn't use the axe bullshit. All those sorts of little things that like he likes the drink, but he's not into it like an Oggren is.
Meryl is a character I think that is easy to like, but is also doing things that are not savoury.
She is like it's kind of like Isabella, where she's like her personality is likable, but she's a blithering idiot. So stuff like that, and Aveline, I really like.
I love
Aveline.
She's amazing. And especially, in a game where everything is insane, like even to some degree Hawk, who is absolutely insane to do the things he or she does, Aveline is the straight man, she is the rock. She is the rock of the party, she's the stable point. And I think she's really what often brings the party together. That's my opinion. I just really like Aveline. And so other people will be like, I like Aveline because she's a woman in position of power who knows what she wants and gets what she needs.
I like Aveline because she is not a stereotypical woman, and I think she does a lot for. I don't know. I think Aveline's character is the kind of thing that people like Anita Sarkeesian are looking for in video games.
Let's not bring that name up here.
Yeah, Sarkeesian, I won't.
That's not the only reason. That's not the only reason I like her. I like her because I like that she's good, and I like that she is just kind of like a sister.
She's level-headed. Like she's reasonable.
Very level-headed, very reasonable, and she will always kind of. She's very loyal as well, which is something. She's just such a good character, and it's especially hilarious if you're trying to flirt with her during that attitude quest.
Right over her head.
She just has no idea what's going on.
Oh, she's so, and it's really endearing because, like, at the same time, like, on the like we're talking about BioWare subverting, appearances. On the outward, she's sort of like she's a square. She's boring. She's like a stuck-up sort of police woman, I guess you could talk about it that way, and she's like really into the law and stuff. But at the same time, like over the years, and this is what the like that narrative structure I keep talking about is really good for. It shows her change into she still holds the law above a lot of other things, but at the same time, it's more about her morals. And she's not afraid to stick her neck out for, even for someone like Varric, who by all means she should be arresting most of the time, and should be, but she's willing to look the other way for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really interesting, particularly, as a guardswoman, and as eventually captain of the guard. But yeah, she's just a really great character all around.
She's awesome. She's
also and I get excited for Cassandra's appearance in Inquisition for the exact same reason I get excited over having Aveline in my party. Like those exact same reasons.
Speaking of Inquisition.
Do we want to go straight into Inquisition?
Yeah, I think we've gone on with Dragon Age 2 long enough.
Yeah, we have.
And if there's anything we haven't covered in Dragon Age 2, we'll probably talk about in Inquisition as well. But yeah, how hype is it? Are we really hype about Inquisition?
I got 20-something more hours until I have that game in my hands.
I'm so jealous. But
it's been 3 years since the last Dragon Age game came out, and
It felt longer actually, like, and I didn't really like feel a need for Inquisition. Like, I didn't feel it at the end of Dragon Age 2. I wasn't like, I really want to get the next installation. But I'm glad. Like, I'm glad they announced it.
The opposite.
Over the years, I've been following it.
I'm actually the opposite, because once upon a time, i.e. 3 months ago-ish, I hadn't played Dragon Age 2, and I was on the verge of not buying Inquisition because I thought, oh well, I played through Origins and it was kind of alright, and I've not done the DLC yet, so I'm just like kind of meh. And then I played through it all, and then I played Dragon Age 2, and I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what the next game is going to be like.
And like, actually, Inquisition made me buy the DLC for Dragon Age 2 this time around. So recently I've been playing through Legacy and Mark of the Assassin, which are both really interesting takes on the system. Like, right now, like, Mark of the Assassin I'm playing through, and they had like a half-an-hour stealth section, which is like, well, okay, that just happened. But it's really great to see the BioWare of, like, changing up the formula. And, like, you know, people wanted something really traditional, and now we got something really radical, and they didn't like that either. But what I really enjoy about Inquisition is that they're trying, like, even transitioning between those DLC into Inquisition, they're trying to meet that really nice balance. And that's what I think made Mass Effect 3 really nice as well. That third installation is finding a balance between the first two, which are very dramatically different, both for, you know, Dragon Age and Mass Effect. But yeah, you know, I really like, you know, how they're reconciling it.
From what I've seen so far, the balance seems to be there, which is what I'm most excited about. Yeah,
and like I mentioned before, the voicing between, you know, Inquisition, like the voice actors, like the voice acting they take, and the dialogue wheel from Mass Effect 2, but there's a lot more choice and a lot more reaction. They've mentioned a lot. They want to get the Inquisition's reaction for a lot of things. Sometimes I think it's a little heavy-handed. Like, there'll be a conversation, like I saw from some of the earlier videos. They'll have a conversation about something, and Colin will just turn to the Inquisition, the Inquisitioner. Yeah, and he'll just Inquisitor. How do I English? But Colin just turns to him and just says, "So, what do you think about this?" And I was kind of like, "Oh, well, okay. I get that there has to be more choice, but they could have fitted in a little better without breaking the pace of the conversation." But I don't know. I like that. I still like the fact that there's so much more choice.
Oh,
and the combat tree. They kept the combat tree, which I'm really happy with. It's a great compromise between Dragon Age 2 and, you know, the first Dragon Age. Again, and that's basically what it's all about, I feel.
From what I see as well, they've made it a little slower, which normally I would go, oh no, but I think it really works because it gives each hit impact.
It gives it room to breathe.
Yeah, like kind of hack and slashy like Dragon Age 2 was.
And also,
for the first time ever, we have the tactical cam on console.
So much more improved. Like, even over the original, like in Dragon Age Origins, like people love the tactical camera, but Origins tactical camera had so many issues, even to the PC version. Like, you'd zoom out into like the full top-down view from the classic Neverwinter Nights, Baldur's Gate, that sort of thing, and even then you would be unable to move the camera around. Like, you could change the angle, but you'll be fixed on the character that you'd selected if you zoomed out fully. And with Inquisition, they did the most sensible thing that they could, and they fully unlocked it.
Yes.
Now you can scroll everywhere, look at anything on the map. You can move the camera around, zoom in, zoom out, do whatever.
I suppose though that might be a symptom of another great, phenomenal, very exciting feature, which is the open maps.
Yeah, and also because the maps are a lot bigger. Yeah, you can't afford to have it like fixed on a single character when there are so many different points of advantage.
It's not entirely open world, but the areas are so huge that it is a case of if you can jump in the distance, you can go there pretty much most of the time.
And I think that's a really nice compromise between, you know, the sort of open world that people expect and, you know, the sort of hub world that we're used to in Dragon Age, because like Dragon Age really is Like, at the end of the day, we look at Dragon Age, and the system is from the old Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights of old, where they're basically pre-built hubs, and one door leads to...
I'm super excited about exploration, because that's something we haven't really had in any Dragon Age. I mean, it seems like we have had it in Origins, but it's not really exploration when it's, click on Denerim, now you're in Denerim. This is more about discovery
and there wasn't the sort of huge variation in the look. I mean, you go to the deep roads, okay, the Dwarven caves. Then you go outside, and I was like, every now and then, okay, Elven, go to the Dalish, there's an Elven forest, that's cool. But most of the time, it was just city area, forest area, cave area, that sort of thing. And they would they reuse palettes. But what's really good about what I've seen from Inquisition, I think, Carly, I don't know if you can back me up on this, is the fact that the hubs are so different.
Yeah.
Like you go up into the mountain, it's all snowy and it's wonderful, and you go down onto the beach, and it's like Pebble Beach, which is really good. And then sometimes forests and cities, and they're also the palettes are so different. And I think part of that we credit to Frostbite 3 engine, which looks amazing.
Well, the thing is, during the trial, you only have 2 places you can go.
So I wasn't sure if you could back me up on that, because there was limited zones.
You have Haven, which is your original base camp, and you have the Hinterlands. It's there's not a different climate over there.
Not too different, yeah.
What I can tell you...
Are the Hinterlands really snowy and stuff, or...?
No, it's just grass, trees, number one.
Enough.
I was there for 4.5 hours, and I was not close to finishing the Hinterlands. It really is fucking big. It has a lot of it has a level scaling, so there are certain areas that if you're in a low level, do not go there, or you're gonna get your ass whooped.
Yeah, I'm so afraid to be hyped, because everyone talks about the content as if it's, they said in the reviews it's 80 hours of story content, and the Hinterlands, I finished a 100-hour playthrough that the Hinterlands, there are still sections that I haven't explored, and I'm afraid to buy into that, but at the same time everyone's saying it. So I'm it's so everyone's saying it. It can't possibly be that big, but everyone is literally saying the same thing, and it's such a consistent message. Either the marketing is really good or it's actually true. And if it's the latter, it will blow my mind. I cannot believe it. Too much hype.
They have this. I gotta tell you, from what I played so far, the things that I saw that I really liked. If you're walking around in previous games, party banter, it wasn't until Dragon Age 2 that your character could actually join in the party banter. The 2 characters talking or something, and it's hard to join in. In this one...
Oh, you get an input into the party banter?
Yes. Straight up in the prologue, once you get Barak and Solus, you're walking around and Barak starts talking to you that you're probably from the Free Marshes, because if you play as a human noble, and you can actually while you're walking, you get the dialogue tree to answer him.
That's amazing.
I was like,
it's one of the best things that BioWare does, and it's party banter. And that's also one of the best things about Dragon Age 2, is that because the party banter was the main thing that gave off the sense of change between the time skips, where you hear the characters, and this is one of the big things about the characters in Dragon Age 2 as well. And the characters aren't there simply to serve Hawke. They live their lives. They interact with each other. Aside from being with Hawke, they live their lives out, and that's really the best part about BioWare games. In recent days, recent times, their party banter gives them that extra sense of character, and that they aren't there just for Hawke. But and I remember earlier on in the in the videos, the demos, we saw this thing where the Inquisitor would walk up to someone, but it wouldn't be a full window sort of loading screen dialogue conversation. Is that what the party banter is? It would just it's just a seamless transition.
Yeah, you're just walking around and you get the dialogue through there, and you can keep walking.
So it just pops up, right? And it's like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah, so there's a similar thing like they saw like when interacting with like NPCs that are making like side quests. It was differentiating that banter between serious conversation trees and just banter. And I think that's what they were doing, and that's really exciting. Like differentiating that between the serious business and the light-hearted business.
That has just made me even more excited.
That is a great system. I think I didn't possibly know how they could improve the party banter, but there you go, they did it. Believe in BioWare.
Believe.
I believe. I'm a believer. Like the more I hear about it, the more I believe. It's absolutely mind-boggling how good it sounds.
The game is really pretty. Like if you watch the stream where Cameron Lee and Mike Lightlaw are playing to the prologue, and they had this bit where they're walking through the ice, and you get the reflection from the bridge.
Yeah, they mentioned it. I'm like, yeah, you're so right. Oh,
once I went through that part myself, I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking pretty. It's like scenery porn being thrown at you. It's perfect.
And BioWare knew it. You remember all those early trailers was nothing but landscape montages. Just they took a dev camera and went through the whole game, and it's like, here, look how pretty Inquisition is. And they were so right. It looks amazing. And like, just imagine like if Inquisition looks this good, and think about how good Mass Effect 4 is going to look.
Or even the next Dragon Age.
Yeah, no, and like you saw that earlier footage of the Marco in the new Mass Effect, and it was like the landscape. Even though the Marco is untextured, just look at the way the landscape interacts and the snow kicking up and everything. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. and this is webcam. This is webcam footage. And I'm like, this Frostbite 3 engine is the best thing that happened to BioWare, and they know how to work it now. It's absolutely amazing.
So the drinking game is no longer only like say Mass Effect.
I would be out of my ass right now if it was just a drinking game. But like everything about
people are talking about BioWare and not talking about Mass Effect. I'm sorry, it's an illness.
You know I love Mass Effect. It's just so funny that every single time you've managed to find a way to bring in Mass Effect to the conversation.
The only thing that I find that has detracted from the games and the use of Frostbite 3 engine is the lack of save importing. I think that's a little iffy, but I think at some point that's a transition we needed to have. Especially because by even Dragon Age 2 it had a lot of new effects, it had a new lighting engine.
Don't they still have save imports on if it's on the same platform though?
I used to think that it did, but now we're going to talk about Dragon Age Keep in a while, but I don't think it does. What it does is it uploads your profile from the BioWare social network, which if you've played the previous games, Dragon Age games, they often upload a profile of your created character onto the BioWare site. I think that's what Dragon Age Keep is running off, and you cannot you cannot directly import a character from a previous game because of the engine change.
I did not know that. I thought it would be that if you were, say, because Inquisition is coming out for last gen consoles too.
Yeah.
Although if you have a next gen console, why the hell would you choose to play it on a last gen console? But anyway.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that, say, a person bought Inquisition for PS3, that they would be able to import their save from Dragon Age 2.
Yeah. Well, no, you can, because of the engine change, it's like I think the way
I thought the Keep was mainly for people who were changing platforms.
Yeah, but no, the thing is, it's very drastically different, like the way the Frostbite 3 engine is laid out, and also it's removed the possibility of mods. I mean, I know it's not a big deal, probably not a huge deal for you guys, but for some people, mods are a huge part of Dragon Age.
Yeah.
It was never the same level of customization as, say, something like Skyrim or Fallout was. But the options were there, and Frostbite 3, from what I've heard, is extremely difficult to modify.
I'm sure someone will simplify that at some point.
Someone will probably figure it out. They've done it they did it for the Unreal Engine, so a lot of Mass Effect was very moddable. But for Frostbite 3, it's very difficult. The Battlefield 4 came out, and they were like, oh, well, we can't really touch it. We don't really know how it works. But at the same time, the visual upgrade, I feel, is more than worth it. I'm sure most of us agree. And, you know, it's a transition we had to make. Dragon Age 2 had a lot of visual improvements over Dragon Age Origins, which looked like arse. Even back in the day, Dragon Age Origins did not look fantastic for the graphics of its day.
That was one of my objections when I first played it too. I was not impressed one bit.
Yeah. So, even then, Dragon Age 2, they improved a lot. They had physics in the hair for a start, which is something I didn't notice. Like, wow, it actually changes a lot because like the stiff hair and stuff. Which we'll talk about hair in Inquisition as well. But but Dragon Age 2.
The hair move?
Yeah. Dragon Age 2 didn't look great. Dragon Age Inquisition is an upgrade we need to have. Otherwise, people would not have liked it. And they marketed it as a next-gen game, so...
if my hair moved, it wouldn't be able to notice because my character had really short hair. Like, it's a time trial. If I actually would have put time to customize my character, which I usually do, I probably would have lost about 4 hours of the 6 hours.
Harley, is it a default male or female?
Male.
Is it
character creator
default male though? Is there like a default male like model?
No, you have 2 or 4 set of heads that you can customize from there.
Listen, this excites me so much because I find it difficult not to play as the default.
Really?
Well, yeah, because they're usually really good looking, and it's really hard to make a character that is good looking.
Male default shepherd disagrees with you.
Male default shepherd
was. Yeah, he was modeled after an actual male model. I don't think in this like.
He went wrong somewhere because he looks.
For Inquisition, I think he looks alright. No. Inquisition, like they're all kind of really. They look really generic. Lex. I wouldn't like. You would probably. I think you would probably want to customize it at least a little bit to play around.
I'm really excited about this. I created my own character for Origins, obviously, because that was the same deal.
Yeah. A lot of people wanted the character creator for Inquisition to come out early, and I actually kind of agree with them because it would have been such a great tease.
Yeah, because you're going to spend quite a lot of time making the character, and
yeah, I'm going to spend hours making it.
I'm not going to rush through the game. I don't do rushing through the game, but yes. I might like disappear for like a week and only post about the game.
I can guarantee you that I'm disappearing for at least 80 hours.
I want to do that, but I don't know if I have the time to do it, but I really want to do it.
It's
like character creator alone. Yeah, I'm a huge sucker for character creators. Like really robust ones.
My player characters always have to look good. If they don't look good, they cannot be my player characters.
I did not mind the Elvish redesigns. I'll say it out there for Dragon Age 2. I did not mind the redesigns.
Oh, I did. Listen, I liked that they did more to highlight the difference between elves and humans. I liked that. I didn't like the fact that they now all look like genetically challenged
I think
children.
They went over like some of the elves. They look really nice. Some of them they like the principle of it was basically okay, this is great. They are no longer humans with pointy ears. That's great. And then some of them were like so deformed. And like their cheekbones are seriously hollowed out, and I was like, "Oh, this it's really badly done."
The biggest thing to notice in it is bump into Zevran and his quest at the end of Dragon Age 2.
I didn't mind Zevran's look.
Yeah, but I mean, it does look like they've again kind of struck a balance in Inquisition.
Yeah, they've the bridge isn't quite so prominent, but it's there. It's kind of in the elves' ears, but I feel like some things they did regress a little bit into the Origins territory with Inquisition in terms of the look. But I'm extremely glad they kept the Kunari horns. That was the best. Kunari horns the best. I'm very glad they kept the Kunari horns.
They had said going into Dragon Age 2 that Sten does mention in Origins that it's only special Kunari that don't have horns.
Yes, and then they are especially feared as warriors, apparently.
Yeah,
they have like a special status. So I guess it was kind of like it was kind of a retcon, but at the same time it's not, because that was probably one of their original designs in Origin. They just went for a hornless Sten so they could fit helmets on his head.
Sten actually Sten's name? I can't remember.
No, that is his title.
Yeah, it is a title.
Just his title, yeah, because Sten is
a warrior title, yeah.
For a Canary without horns, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Canary.
Yeah, let's talk about characters.
No, are you ready to ride the ball?
We will get to the romance in a bit, but maybe we should talk about the characters, and then we'll make a nice segue.
Should we start with Cassandra, because she's kind of the bridge between Dragon Age 2?
Cassandra is my favorite. Yeah.
I already flirted with her in the time trial, so I'm already really happy.
Disgusted noises.
Plus the picture that's online. That really nice picture.
Yeah,
you know,
I
have been seeing a lot of hate online for the fact that Cassandra is the only option for a straight male, and I can't work out why.
You know, people are always gonna complain about something.
Yeah, no, but there are plenty of options for straight males.
But they're like, oh, she's not women-y at all. And I was like, go on, be kidding.
Cassandra to me is a fantastic design for a character.
Yeah. I think
all around
awesome. I can't wait to get to know it a bit better.
I like her for, like I mentioned before, I like her for some of the exact same reasons that I like Aveline. On the outside, she's highly driven by a particular thing, and for Aveline it was the law. For Cassandra, it's her faith. Her faith to the Chantry and the Maker and whatnot, and obviously from what I hear, the game is like really big on making some parallels to religion. But at the same time, like from what I know of Cassandra, her faith is very driven by practicality. It's driven by morals and her, common sense, morals and common sense, which I think is the best kind of faith. There's some very bad kind of faith out there, which is a debate for something else, but overall, it's the best kind of faith. I don't know, that's just me. And plus, I really like short hair.
We have Varric returning, our favorite dwarf.
She has some very strong, really held beliefs, but she's not. She's also not unreasonable. She is severe to a point, but you can get through to her. Do you know what I mean? I
remember the Q&A. They mentioned that she's actually a big romantic at heart, which I guess is kind of cute. But
you can find stuff on Dragon Age 2 because if you're playing as a male Hawk, as Barry saw in the story, she starts getting a crush on Hawk, which is hilarious when Barry brings it up.
She also kind of digs female Hawk, if you sort of, but she relates to Hawk as a female, as an independent woman who built herself up from nothing, and she has a respect for that. So I guess it's a similar thing, but yeah, she's she mentions if you duel the Arashok on one-on-one, and she comments on how romantic it sounds, which I guess is a kind of a nice sort of character, a little character they revealed during the interrogation, which is nice.
Varric,
the other great thing.
I think we all agree that we all love Varric, and we're really happy that he's back.
Who doesn't like Varric?
I'm disappointed that he's not a love interest, but that damn Bianca.
He's married to Bianca. It can never be. Well, Bianca still lives.
Of course it's Bianca. Why did you have a hold on his heart? That sexy chest hair. Can never do anything with it. So disappointing.
Do you remember the Bioware April's Fool where they were selling a 2P that was supposed to be Varric's chest hair?
Yes.
That was amazing. Oh, and they trolled everyone by having the add to cart button fly around, away from the cursor, which is this is the worst. You're the worst, BioWare. but
so we
also
have
the best.
yeah, so we have those two characters that we already know. The only other
Yep.
character that I met during the time trial was Solus, and I was actually surprised by him, but because what I've seen from him so far, I thought he was gonna be more serious and dull.
Hmm.
He's actually more. It's a lot funnier when.
How could he not be though with his voice actor?
Yeah. He gets into a lot of funny party banter with Varric, which is just like, oh, Jill, definitely funnier than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was gonna be one of my favorite characters, and he might be.
He seems very polite. Like that's like my impression that he's like sort of like gentleman-like. Like I don't know if that's particularly true. But that's the impression I got from like from the first hour and like his appearance and the dialogue and stuff. Like he seems sort of that gentleman sort of character. I don't know. Is that what he turns out to be, or?
Look, he's very funny. He's very snarky, and you can tell that when he's going back and forth with Varric. So.
BioWare's snarky options are always the best options. Yeah.
The one that I'm really looking forward to see is Vivienne. Because, first of all, the voice actress. Ilaria Stan from Game of Thrones. I was so fucking happy when they announced her as the voice actress for Vivienne. I was like, this is so fucking perfect.
She's going to be interesting because she's probably the character I know the least about.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine where the character's going. I don't think it's a hard read to see what sort of character type she is, especially when we've gotten like a trailer for her, which absolutely looked great. And I think she was actually one of the first new companions to be revealed.
Yeah, she was in the first. She was in the E3 trailer with Barrick and Cassandra.
Was she?
Yes.
I mean, the character trailer. There were like a ton of trailers, so I've missed a lot.
No, I mean the gameplay footage that you got at E3.
Yeah. But no, as in like her character art was one of the first ones that were revealed, and I think they gave her like very early on, like into Inquisition's, and like after Inquisition was announced, she was one of the first characters they talked about, like to a great degree about her character design, the way she dresses, which is really weird, by the way. But that's all A for you. But yeah, I like she's so sassy. I think that's one of the things that really I found her really like fun to listen to. This is her voice actor sells it, but also the writing. She's just really sassy about everything, and I like that.
The rest of them we don't really know. We know the Iron Bull is really gonna be funny, and I'm probably gonna tease Les a lot with the whole ride the bull.
Iron Bull looks fantastic.
I still think I'm gonna ride the bull, to be honest. Probably.
Yeah, you have to. We don't really know much about everyone else. Sarah looks really funny from what we've seen so far, but don't know anything about her yet.
Apparently she's really obsessed with butts or something. That's what I heard. Like she I don't want to spoil anything because obviously I haven't even played it, but I hear a lot of things about how she's like super weird and eccentric. I suppose.
Dorian is another one who's there's not really much
guy.
Dorian looks fabulous.
He's a Tevinter mage who is fighting to not avenge anything, but kind of help me out here. He's fighting because the Tevinter mages are looked upon as evil, or pretty much the Tevinter mages are like they keep slaves, and they're essentially not regarded very well. And
so is he a Tevinter mage?
He's a Tevinter mage, and he
is. Okay, yeah. I can see where that goes.
Yeah, he joins the Inquisition in the hope that he can kind of save the reputation of the Tevinter mages.
Fair enough.
That's all I know about him, but I think he's set to be a really interesting character.
His moustache looks fake as shit, though. Looks like it's been.
I hate those moustaches so much. I was going to. He was my choice for romance.
It's the most foppish looking moustache. It looks like it's been penciled onto his brow. It's like ugh. It looks so skeezy, but yeah,
Well,
you know, I like the character, but you know, and restricted to homosexual only, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's time we move on to the keep.
You want to talk about Soulless, Blackwall?
I already talked
What
about Soul. I
else?
said I don't know anything about Black Wolf.
I don't know anything about Blackwall at
Yeah,
all.
I know nothing about Blackwall either.
Yeah,
They
so
haven't
this is
really.
not.
Mm,
To talk about the other characters, with outside of Cole, which if you read the novels, you'd know a little bit about
yeah,
his character. But the
yeah.
other ones, since we haven't met them, there's no really point.
What little I've seen of Cole, I'm not really warming up to him. Like his character, like to be honest, like it seems like you know, it feels very JRPG. Like you know what I mean? Like sort of like oh, I'm a quiet badass sort of like character.
Well,
Because I remember
hopefully that can be another subversive trope. Who knows?
I'm hoping that too, because I remember, like, you remember when everyone saw Fenris, so I was like, oh, a dude with a, like, skinny elf with a giant sword, and really angsty and stuff. Like, well, there's more to it than that, but yeah, it was kind of JRPG-ish. Not to mention it was voiced by, what's his face?
Alfier.
What was his name? Yeah, Baltier, basically. So, the comparisons were easy to draw. And I feel the comparisons here for Cole are also easy to draw, because like on the outward appearance, like he's supposed to be the the hidden badass, the edgy kid, and
Yeah.
and that's not a personality that I like warm up to very easily. Like, even though I play a lot of JRPGs, that personality doesn't appeal to me. And from what I got from the gameplay videos, have you seen the Skyhold walkthrough? Like where they go through the actual home base and like you do little side quests for the characters.
Got to. I think you could at this point you should know that we've seen everything.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just don't like the character. Just doesn't appeal to me.
Let's just move on to the keep because we've gone on quite a bit long here.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we'll fix it in post.
There's not really. We can just edit out the discussion.
I think we've actually covered most of what we really like and don't like about the thing. So like this might actually be like towards the end. We might actually be approaching the end because we've actually done a lot of comparison and talk.
Yeah,
about
we probably should have talked about
Yeah,
it
just
before we talked about
the keep and that's it.
Yeah, I think we've actually covered quite a good amount. Like this, we've covered the meat of the material about Inquisition. Dragon Age Keep. So have we? Everyone's used it, right?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How hype is that?
I think it's a neat, cool feature. It doesn't feature as many decisions as I thought it would, to be honest.
I just think they're just putting the decisions that are actually gonna matter. There's an interesting thing in some of the decisions that when you were playing Origins and Dragon Age, you thought, oh, this is not gonna matter in the future, and because they're in the keep, you know they are. Because you had the decision, oh, did you drink the blood consortium that Avernus made in Origins? Like, when you do that in Origins, you don't really think that there's gonna be anything more to it that's gonna change. There's gonna have a gameplay effect, not actual storyline. And because it's in the keep, it's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely gonna matter in the story.
I think they've definitely like covered the most important ones. Obviously they have to because but I think the way choices like affect Dragon Age is much different from the way choices affect Mass Effect because in Mass Effect there you go. But like here we are. But the thing is with Mass Effect it was all about how it affected you and how it affected your team. Whereas in Dragon Age often you don't like even in Dragon Age 2 you didn't come across a lot of choices that directly affected you in the game because you were a completely different character and most of the effects that happened on you were happening as cameos or they're just those basically side things that happened in the world at the time. And so in Dragon Age 2 the most effect that you saw was when you went into the bar and you asked the bartender for a drink and you asked him what's up and he would just basically spout bits of trivia at you.
Yeah, but
we talked
remember,
about how
Dragon
many
Age
choices
2 is
each world.
it's a separate story from Dragon Age Origins, so it's not really the
And
same
so,
with the
and the
Mass
thing
Effect.
is, and the thing is, so is in a way, so is Inquisition. So those choices, while they have a major effect, but they're not really affecting the Inquisitor and the Inquisition as much as they are affecting the world that they're in. If you know what I mean,
Yeah, but yes, we should play the game first before actually saying those things.
Well, no, this is I'm just going off what they've said in they've talked about Dragon Age 2 in the past. And I mean, they called the save import a world state, which really says more about the world than it does the actual Inquisition.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. In any case, but yeah, I don't know. And there's stuff like Leliana's whether you killed her or not. I think that's one of those really interesting points because.
To me, it doesn't matter because they're gonna put up an excuse of why she's actually alive.
Yeah. So that's another one of those things that'll be interesting to see how they play out, how they explain it, because obviously we know at this point that
Actually, they're not really gonna explain it. They're just gonna ham way to it and just move on.
We don't know that because obviously when you kill her, she was standing right next to Leanna's sacred ashes, right?
They already did it when she appeared in Dragon Age 2. They just ham waved the fact that she was there, even though you actually kill her in Dragon Age Origins.
Well, it was just a cameo. They didn't have to. They didn't have to go Cassandra. Cassandra didn't have to be like, "Oh, Liliana, I thought you were dead."
Yeah.
Because it was by then. It was like
I don't think
you're
gonna have an explanation.
It was actually 6 years past it, so I didn't think they needed an explanation, but they do need to. They definitely need to explain it for Inquisition now that she has a major role as an advisor. But I think
I don't think they're going to.
Well, obviously the choice is there. Like in the Dragon Age Keep, the choices of whether you killed her or not is a huge part of that section. So obviously it's an important part of the game that they will eventually explain somehow. That's my take on it.
I don't think so.
I think they will, for the same reason whether or not you killed Morrigan. Did you kill Morrigan? Didn't you kill Morrigan? But she came back anyway.
Why? To me, it's why would you do either one? Say kill either one of them, but it doesn't really matter. They didn't explain it. They didn't explain it with Anders in Dragon Age 2. If he didn't become a warden in Awakening, they just hand waved it and move on. I don't really expect them to change stuff in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Well, and then there's also the obvious argument that they've done a lot more work in Inquisition than they did for Dragon Age 2. So they might actually spend the time to explain things now that they put in the hard yards for how many 3-4 years.
I will say though, not exactly what they keep, but I am really loving Liliana in Inquisition. I'm loving how he looks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving the way her personality, which is completely different from the personality she was portraying in Origins. It's I think this is actually her.
Is it? Okay. So it's different, is it?
Yeah. It's a lot different. I think this
I
is
liked her original character, but are you talking about after she's hardened or what? Or
before, when you meet her, that wasn't her.
So is her character are you saying her character in Inquisition is more like when you harden Liliana and her bard sort of occupation comes out?
Yes, she's a lot more cynical now, and I think this is the actual Liliana, what you're seeing now, and I really like that.
Okay. Because I still remember her, I just went over Mark of the Assassin. She shows up in Mark of the Assassin, just as a very minor cameo, and I still got from that the same Liliana act. Even though I'd hardened her in the previous game, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind either personality, to be honest, but it'll be interesting. I'll be very interested to see how the returning characters play out. Have you encountered Morrigan or?
No, that wasn't part.
No.
I feel like Morrigan is the center of the story in Inquisition.
From what I've heard, she plays the part, but she's not exactly the centerpiece.
I read a snippet though that said this is very much like this isn't a spoiler, or maybe it is, I don't know, but it was one of the writers who wrote a while ago. This is very much Morrigan's Tale.
Really? Okay.
Inquisition is very much Morrigan's Tale, so I think a lot of what happens in Inquisition will revolve around her, whether or not you know that at first. So so I don't know. I think the character is going to be fully explored in this game, and we will find out where she was when she went through the Illuvian. And
we're hoping all the characters will be explored. I mean, given that this is an 80-hour game, holy shit.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not about to go through like 3-hour quests for Kendra or anything. I think Morrigan's going to play a very large role in this game.
I'm so looking forward to that. I'm dying to see, because that was one of my biggest investments in Dragon Age Origins and going to the Dragon Age CG was Morrigan, the old baby, the old god.
The old god.
Rewarding all that relationship, seeing where that goes to now.
Yeah.
Basically every single decision that I made throughout Dragon Age Origins, throughout Dragon Age 2, how they're gonna play into the game now.
And like I said, the most important ones are in the keep. Like even the Witch Hunt DLC stuff, that's all there. Like the big choices you make, I think they'll be there. Yeah, like I think that I feel they will account for it, because otherwise, if they weren't going to explain it, then their options wouldn't be in the keep. That's my take on it, but your choices matter, that sort of thing. Dragon Age 2, the imports are fairly robust as well. It also reminded me how much stuff there was, and I actually admit there were like some of the choices in Dragon Age 2, for Dragon Age 2, the keep section. For Dragon Age 2, there were some choices that I didn't even know existed, which says something about the game. Yeah. There are also quests that I ended up completely missing on my first playthrough. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know Gamlen had a daughter. I was like, oh wow. Okay.
What the fuck, man?
I did not. I completely missed it.
A hidden quest.
Yeah, she shows up and she's like, hi cousin, how's it going?
and this is the thing, like. With the progression of Dragon Age 2, sometimes you don't know what's a main quest unless you really look into the journal every now and then. And then, especially
main quest.
Yeah, I know, I missed it.
I've got a thing, I don't do main quests until I've done the rest of it, so I didn't really miss anything.
Fair enough. Anyway,
well, guys, I think it's time to give a final thought about Inquisition. It's like, what exactly are you expecting to happen?
Here are my final thoughts. Hype.
Yep, I'm just going to plus one that.
Yeah, I want more Flemeth. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but I want more Flemeth. So that's all I'm going to say.
I also want to see more of... I'm seriously interested in the multiplayer. I'm not as much as I was for Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is a hard standard to beat. Yes. Because Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is extremely solid.
It's a very
even though it was an addition. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to how they mix it up for Dragon Age Inquisition systems. But I frequent some forums who are really into the real nitty gritty of the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3, like things like frames, reload cancels, that sort of thing, random number generators.
You're not
all
going
the
to
calculations.
Pause.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. Like removing the tactical pause at the same, changed Mass Effect 3's multiplayer a huge amount, and I suspect it will do the same for Inquisition, and it'll be interesting to see how they transition that format, because and initially I didn't think they could do it, but looking at an early trailer, it was like, oh okay, it's actually for multiplayer cooperative dungeon crawler. Like something like Diablo even. And I was like, okay, that can work. So I'm interested in seeing that. But apart from that, there isn't a whole lot to say except major hype burners and really looking forward to getting the game at some point. And playing through it. And all the music. The music blows my mind.
Yes, the music's awesome.
Just want to say how great Trevor Morris has been for the series. We'll probably fix it in post. We'll put in some Trevor like music for Dragon Age Inquisition.
See, what I'm looking forward is to see all the events from the previous games, how they all play together, how all of that falls in with Dragon Age Inquisition. I really wanna that the game is gonna be really great. I really want that. I want a good storyline. I want a good ending.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was being very subtle there.
You need to remember though
Very
that
subtle.
this is also isn't the end of a trilogy, but
No.
from what I know, it is the end of an era.
Yeah.
But it's the resolution of that specific storyline.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know quite a bit more than I did in the past 24 hours because I've been on the BioWare forum checking it out. So I know, for example, who the Elder One is. And that was actually really interesting.
So you've been spoiling yourself.
I love spoilers. You all know that. I really love spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's one of the. It was one of my theories for the Elder One ended up as being so. Okay. That wasn't entirely surprising.
Yeah, I've read up on it a little bit as well, and I've kind of looked at spoilers every now and then, but I'm not. I don't care much for what I've seen, to be honest, so that might be what worries me a little bit. Because the story seems a little derivative.
The thing is, if you get little pieces, then it doesn't make a lot of sense until you get a lot of pieces and they'll start coming together.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
Anyways, we'll hype about Dragon Age Inquisition.
We're all hyped.
Comes
out when? Comes out when and for what?
It comes out for me on Tuesday, so I'm very excited about that.
The 18th of November for
18th of November for North Americans.
And 21st of November for Europeans.
20th, I think it's the 20th for Europe, 21st for UK, and the 19th for Australians. For PC, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. There we go.
Anyways, with that, it's time to end this podcast. It was really fun talking with you guys. I hope everyone listening enjoyed this. I hope you're all looking forward to Dragon Age Inquisition as much as we are. I hope we all love the game, and it's just exactly what we wanted the game to be. And it's time to say goodbye.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Adios. Thank you for watching. If you liked us, please subscribe to our channel. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.